public hearing for the Committee on Higher Technical and Vocational Education, joined with the Committee on Science and Technology, is hereby called to order. We would like to welcome everyone and especially acknowledge the presence of our dear colleagues in the Senate. Let me first acknowledge the Chairperson of the Committee on Science and Technology, Senator Nancy Binay, our good friend and seatmate. Of course, we wanted to recognize one of the authors of the measure and a member of the committee, Senator Francis Tol Tolentino. Also with us is Senator Lito Lapid, who is also one of the authors of one of the bills and the resolutions we're going to tackle here today. Senator Pia Cayetano is also with us. I just saw her. Hi, ma'am. Thank you for being with us. Senator Pia Cayetano is with us, one of the champions of education in the Senate. Also with us, the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, Chairman Popoy De Vera III. Sir, good morning. CHED Unifast Executive Director Ryan Esteves. From the Department of Finance, Attorney Nina Asuncion. From PASUC, President Tirso Ronquillo. From PACU, President Caroline Enriquez. And representing our teachers, faculty from COTESCUP, lead convener, Professor Tadle is with us. Of course, my favorite DDG in TESDA, Director General, Deputy Director General Rosana Ordaneta, and Senator Amy Marcos also is with us. Thank you, Manang from Ilocos. Thank you for joining us. At this juncture, I'd like to make an opening statement. Again, mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat. Alam po ninyo, at I'm sure alam na alam ng ating mga kasamahan, ni Chairman Popoy, ni DDG Rose, at ng aking mga kasamahan sa Senado. Alam po nila yung halos araw-araw na pag-webinar, pag-Zoom meeting, pag-conduct ng mga ganitong pagtitipon. I'm sure naranasan po natin ito at lahat po siguro tayo ay naka-login ngayon dito sa Cisco Webex. May kaunting worry na baka mag-hang up ang internet connectivity natin anytime. This worry stems from the fact that the Philippines remain a laggard in terms of digital adoption. Last year's Speed Test Global Index ranked the Philippines 103rd out of 139 countries in terms of internet speed. Mas lalo po nating nakikita ngayon ang kabagalan ng internet sa bansa because we are all working or learning from home. Unfortunately, connectivity issues affected the implementation of the Open Distance Learning Act. Imagine, after more than 5 years since the enactment of this law, only 22 HEIs offer distance education programs. It's for this reason that we have filed Senate Resolution number 383 to know how we can strengthen ODL amid the pandemic that has made all the more urgent the shift to online and other alternative modes of learning for our colleges and universities and TVET institutions. In line with this, Senator Francis Tol Tolentino has also filed Senate Bill number 1459, or the establishment of a tertiary online education and distance learning office to help CHED develop guidelines and quality standards for the implementation of online and distance learning, especially in times of national emergencies. Now, we are all aware that the shift to online learning within the shortest time and the lack of preparation of many schools have caused anxiety and resistance among students and faculty members. Halimbawa po sa isang Facebook post, naglabas ng sama ng loob yung isang estudyante sa SUC. Ang sabi po niya, sobrang naiinis ako sa sarili ko ngayong araw na ito dahil hindi man lang ako makasali sa online class namin. Nagpa-load ako ng GS50 o yung Go Surf 50 ng Globe. Pero hindi pala sapat yun. Kahapon, sinusubukan kong mag-sign in sa Microsoft Teams para makasali sa online class namin. ngayong araw, kaso hanggang ngayon, loading pa rin. Tapos hanggang sa hindi na kinaya ng data, ako na lang ang sumuko. Ang hirap namang mag-access ng klase namin. Naiiyak na lang ako kasi ang mga classmates ko ay may attendance pero ako wala. Nakakahiya namang manghingi ng pang-load kasi ngayon lang nakabalik sa trabaho si tatay. Gustuhin ko man mag-comply sa mga requirements pero ang hirap talaga ng internet connection. Ito po ang sabi ng isang estudyante sa Facebook. Perhaps this kind of situation prompted our dear colleague, si Senator Lito Lapid Pinuno, to file Senate Bill number 1538, which seeks for a moratorium on student loan payment to ease the burden of families during disasters. In Central Mindanao University, only 56% of students have internet connection. And while we are happy to know that there are universities which are already discussing plans to give a gadget subsidy to their students, we also regret to hear other universities saying sana all. The faculty members, being the frontliners of the educative process, also warrants full support. And it's good to know that some SUCs like Philippine Normal University will provide for a flexible teaching and connectivity allowance in the amount of 1,000 pesos per month from September to December of 2020 for its 366 faculty members. While Technological University of the Philippines has sought for the approval of a pandemic allowance for reasonable expenses incurred during work from home arrangement in the amount of 5,000 pesos. Ang sabi po ng isang professor na nakausap po natin, pang-upgrade sa internet subscription ang dagdag na allowance para yung plan 499, pwede ko nang itaas sa plan 1199. Ang hirap na rin in the middle of your Zoom meeting na makat off ang internet access mo. Alam nyo, habang nagsasalita po ako, yan din yung aking worrisome. At sa gitna ng pandemya, walang maliit o malaking ayuda dahil lahat pwedeng makapagpagaan sa sitwasyon na ating pong kinasasadlakan, lalo na ng mga estudyante at kaguruan. That's why I'm happy to inform you that our colleagues in the Senate and this representation work very hard. Yung Bayanihan 2 includes 3 billion pesos for assistance to state universities and colleges, specifically for the development of smart campuses to implement flexible learning methods. Muli, salamat sa ating mga colleagues, especially kay Senator Pia Cayetano, who's very passionate about this. Last May, si Chair Popoy po said that only 20% of SUCs are equipped to conduct online classes this coming school year. In the recent BOR meetings that we attended this August, we found out that the level of preparedness to adopt flexible learning considerably vary across SUCs. PhilSCA, for example, has migrated only 10% of its courses to flexible learning, while Pangasinan State University claims that it's already 90% prepared for flexible learning. I can only surmise that this is the context of our dear colleague, Senator Lapid, when he filed the SR number 415, which seeks to determine the feasibility of creating an online educational delivery platform that will be accessible to all tertiary education institutions, teachers, and students. Ang mga private HEIs po, most especially yung mga maliliit na mga colleges, kailangan din po nila ng tulong dahil nasa 60% lang po ang kayang magpatupad ng flexible learning. Yan po ay ayon sa COCOPEA. Ang Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities, kasama po natin ngayon, ang sabi po nila, they expect that enrollment in private higher education institutions will drop by up to 50%. This is equivalent to roughly 1.5 million to 2 million students, I believe, to leave private schools. Ito po ang pangunahing dahilan ng pagsasara ng ilang mga pribadong kolehiyo ngayong may pandemya. Masakit po ito para sa isang kabataang nangangarap makapagtapos sa napili o pinagsimulan na niyang paaralan. Pero mas masakit po hindi lang sa estudyante kundi sa kanya rin po mga magulang, mahal sa buhay, ang malamang hindi makapasa sa board exam o hirap makapasok sa trabaho ang napagraduate nilang anak. Ano po ang pinupunto ko? Maniwala po tayo that education must continue and it seems that there is no better way to ensure learning continuity amid the pandemic than the use of digital and non-digital technology. Pero kailangan po nating matyak na hindi maapektuhan ng flexible learning modality ang kalidad ng ating mga graduates at ang kanilang kasanayan para makasiguro na may oportunidad sa trabaho sila ngayon at sa post-COVID-19 future. In this regard, we also filed Senate Resolution number 376 to look into the preparedness of our colleges, universities, including TVIs, in the new normal education and ensure quality of graduates and alignment to our industries and the labor job market. Finally, batid ko po ang bigat ng ating trabaho sa nagdaang mga buwan. Ang mga panukalang batas at resolusyon na pag-uusapan po natin ngayon ay maaaring dagdag muli sa ating trabaho at mga responsibilidad. Subalit tiwala po ako na kahit gaano kabigat ang ating pinagdaraanan ngayon dahil sa pandemya, hindi po tayo mauubusan ng lakas dahil sa atin umaasa ang milyong-milyong mga estudyante at kaguruan sa lahat ng ating mga pamantasan at training institution sa buong bansa. Muli, magandang umaga at maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Before we continue, let me acknowledge our dear colleague, Senator Bongo, who's already online. Boss, good morning and thank you for joining us. Also with us is the lead convener of Students' Rights and Welfare Coalition, Julian Tariela, and DICT engineer Enrico Toledo, project manager of free internet access in public areas and places. We'd like to give the floor to our dear colleagues. Perhaps we'll start with the chairperson of the Committee on Science and Technology, Senator Nancy Binay. You have the floor.
Chair, but I don't have any opening statement. We can proceed already. Kasi baka bago maputulan tayo ng signal.
Thank you, Senator Nancy. We'll give the floor now to one of the authors, Senator Francis Tolentino. Senator? Mute, Senator Tol.
Senator Villanueva, Chairman Villanueva, dear colleagues, Senator Cayetano, Senator magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Salamat po at titingin nyo ngayon itong Senate Bill 1459 entitled and establishing the Tertiary Online Learning and Distance Education Office under the Chair, amending for that purpose Republic Act 10650, otherwise known as the Open Distance Learning Act and for other purposes. In summary po, the Bill seeks to address the void in Republic Act 10650, the Open Distance Learning Act of 2014, by reaching out to students in the tertiary level to make use of the virtual platforms in times of calamities or crises. Naalala ko pa ho nung isang hearing natin, hindi katagalan, na tinanong ko si Chairman Popoy Tibera, I'm sure he can answer now, kung pwede po ba yung isang agricultural student coming from Guimaras na tumigil na lang po sa Guimaras State University or Agricultural College para hindi na po pumunta sa UP Los Baños at i-credit na lang po yung courses doon utilizing whatever online equipment are available in Guimaras. With this regard, the bill proposes the creation of a tertiary online education and distance office under the CHED. The said office will not only serve as the lead agency for open distance learning but also prescribe the minimum curriculum requirements for online and distance learning. Sa ngayon po, wala pa tayong ganyan. It will be at the forefront of developing the necessary policy guidelines and quality standards for the extensive implementation of online and distance learning, especially in times of national emergencies, calamities, at kagaya po na nararanasan natin ngayon. The force of circumstances we are currently dealing with urges us to prioritize these measures by providing for virtual and alternative means of learning to ensure that no student will be left behind in the coming academic year or whenever we are faced with a similar calamity or crisis in the future. The Open Distance Learning Act of 2014 has already outlined guidelines to institutionalize open distance learning in coordination with CHED and TESDA. By amending this act, by creating another office within CHED, it will eliminate the need for students to take a gap year due to lack of resources or worry about the possibility of being delayed in finishing their studies just so they can avoid the risk of contracting the novel coronavirus or COVID-19. All told, students should never be made to choose between education and health, both of which are recognized as fundamental human rights. Once again, salamat po Chairman Villanueva for tackling this bill together with other proposed bills and resolutions under your committee. The invaluable discussion we'll have today on the future of our tertiary education during the new normal. Hindi natin alam kung kailan ito matatapos, will not only strongly echo the utmost priority given to education by no less than our Constitution, but also promote the right of all our citizens to quality, affordable, and accessible education at all levels. Maraming salamat po, Chairman Villanueva.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis Tolentino. We'd like to ask our dear colleagues from the Senate if anyone would like to give opening statement. Senator Pia, Senator Pia Cayetano, you're recognized, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'd like to just make a quick statement. I'm the author and I was the sponsor. I actually was the sponsor. No, I believe the principal author was the late Senator Ed Angara, and our colleague, Senator Sani Angara, was the counterpart author in the House of Representatives. So I was the sponsor. I was the chair of the Committee on Education at the time that we passed the the Open Distance Learning Act. And my manifestation is very simple. I'd just like to give some context, no, on how and why I felt that this bill was very relevant at that time. I was actually in Hong Kong hiking with the running priest, and we were chatting about the OFWs in Hong Kong, which was his ministry at that time. And he was telling me the story of many OFWs who would use their only remaining rest time after long hours of working in homes of other people to study so that they can improve themselves. And some of them were studying through I forgot the name, but that's why I prefaced my story that I was hiking with the running priest, because we were in I think Lantau Island, where there is what do you call it? Hindi home, ano ba tawag doon? But there was a group of nuns, no? Parang what do you call them? The nuns na they take a vow of silence. Anyway, they don't.
Monastery.
Yeah, monastery. There you go. Monastery nga ba yun? O para sa mga priests and brothers yun? I don't know. Anyway, it's a congregation of nuns that included many Filipino nuns who take a vow of silence, and their ministry, aside from praying for people and living in silence, was distance education. And a lot of Filipina OFWs were taking courses from them. I think they had a tie-up with colleges and universities, one or two colleges and universities in the Philippines that provided the modules. I was so impressed with the determination of these Filipino OFWs, with the ministry of these nuns, that it really triggered my, I said, I know we have a bill like that pending, and that's why I heard this bill and it is now a law. At that time, we did not foresee something like a pandemic. In fact, the use of the internet was just starting, and I'm looking at the bill and I don't really think we really saw it as a big module, the online learning. But the point is, we already saw this need as a whole, and I'm very happy that this is in place. This is actually in use. This was just really meant to institutionalize a practice that already existed. And if you read the bill, it refers to the University of the Philippines because they really were the pioneer, and it is their mandate as the national university to provide training and to share their knowledge with other institutions. So nandyan pa rin naman yun. So I very much welcome the efforts and any initiative to strengthen this further, including creating an office that will really be able to maximize the intention of this bill. And I will be happy to participate in the days to come also and hear the input of our resource person. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Very much, Senator Pia Cayetano. At this juncture, if my colleagues, if there's, because I couldn't see everyone, no, I can see just some of our colleagues. If they wanted to make any opening statement, comments, please do so. And at this juncture, let me put on record and insert for the record the sponsorship speech of our dear colleague, Senator Lito Lapid. Let it be inserted into the records. We'll give the floor now to our first resource person, and perhaps he could also give us a update of what Senator Pia mentioned a while ago about open universities. We'll give the floor to Chairperson Popoy De Vera III. Sir, good morning, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask the indulgence of the committee. I couldn't log on earlier because I was chairing a special meeting of the UP Board of Regents to discuss specifically what we are taking up now, which is to help students get gadgets, especially the poor students to get gadgets, and also putting in place a loan program for faculty members so they could get their gadgets, their computers, or upgrade it. So I couldn't leave them immediately because we were discussing the funding source on where the money will come from. And I hope to catch up with them later. I think it will still be a long discussion because there's a lot of UP students and faculty members that need assistance. But with respect to the manifestation of Senator Cayetano, if there is one silver lining to COVID-19, I think it is the fact that a lot of things that we did not seriously support in the past, which was needed, we have become obligated to do it. And one of these is open distance learning. We have the policy, we have the law to cover it. But to be very frank, in the Philippines, we are way behind our neighbors in the region in the use of open distance learning as a mechanism to increase access to higher education. That is because when the UP started this before, during the time initially of President Nemenso, initially during the time of President Javier, and then finally President Nemenso, actually, we did not do what our ASEAN neighbors were doing. When we started distance learning in the Philippines for UP Open University, we focused on the graduate level. And some of the other state universities and colleges also used open distance learning in the graduate level. Open distance learning in other countries in the region is a mechanism to increase access in the undergraduate level so that you increase the capacity of the system to get more students to learn without the necessity of increasing the physical structure of your campuses. So if you compare us versus the leading countries in the region, like India, for example, and Indonesia, we are way behind in the number of students who are enrolled in distance education. India has about 1.9 million students enrolled in the open distance learning. I think Indonesia is about 1.4. So we also have not invested well in connectivity in the universities because our level of comfort was to use the more traditional face-to-face classes. So I think this pandemic has now forced us to rethink the way we are doing things. And on the part of the Commission, we have been meeting with the universities to reframe open distance learning. Number one, to connect it with ETIAP, because ETIAP is another program of the government similar to ALS in the undergraduate, where students who did not finish their undergraduate degrees or their graduate degrees can go back to school and their experience can be credited so that they can finish their degrees. So we are tying up ETIAP with open distance learning so that we create a new avenue for students to get degrees if they have not finished it, and for new students to use open distance learning to get their degrees. Second, we are shifting it to do more undergraduate rather than graduate program. So we are re-examining the schools that will be allowed to deliver this, encouraging schools to link up with each other on a consortium basis, so that the manifestation of Senator Tolentino that a student in one school can cross-enroll in another school using distance mode can be possible, because one advantage of open distance learning is it is COVID resilient or COVID proof, because you don't need to do significant travel. Plus, the location of the school geographically, which is a problem in many areas in the country, the students are very far from the schools. You solve that because of open distance learning. So this is the direction. I'll have to ask the indulgence of the Senate. These things, unfortunately, cannot be developed overnight, because you need universities to formalize the way they work at each other, to develop joint degree programs, to adjust credentials that are needed across universities. And I am as impatient as the Senate, and hope that our universities can move this faster. But we welcome the bill that will create a special office in the Commission on open distance learning. I would like to request that this provision of the bill be incorporated in the bill filed by Senator Villanueva to reorganize CHED. If this same provision can be included in that bill to now identify specific offices in the reorganized CHED, then there will be consistency with the intention to improve open distance learning, as well as incorporate this as a major function and activity of the reorganized Commission on Higher Education. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman Popoy. I'm having problems with my audio. Thank you, Chairman Popoy, and we'll give the floor now to the representative of DICT. Where's the Engineer Toledo? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Engineer
Good
Toledo
morning. Good morning, Mr.
of
Chair.
DICT.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Eric
We can't
Toledo.
hear you. Do you hear me? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for this opportunity. For now, allow me to present that the free Wi-Fi as of July 28, 2020, we have 4,459 live sites. And then when regards to SUC, the site is up and working as of July 28 is 102. And then the number of sites per SUCs that we provided is 266. Kasi po sir, hindi naman for every SUCs, merong mga several hotspots that we put. And then the target to complete this end of August is another 16 SUCs with the 23 hotspot. And then by the end of 2020, for the fourth quarter, we will try to complete the target is 653 SUCs with a total of 1,860 live sites, which is hotspots. That's all, Mr. Chair, for the pre-public Wi-Fi. Medyo mahina internet. Yes, sir. That's all for the free public Wi-Fi.
Are you done? Okay, we'll give the floor to DG Rose Urdaneta of TESDA. May we hear from TESDA?
Good morning, the Chair of the Committee on Higher Technical and Vocational Education. Of course, belated happy birthday, Mr. Senator. To the Chair of the Committee on Science and Technology, Senator Nancy Pinay, and to the other members of the Senate of the Philippines who are present, and to my fellow colleagues in the government. On behalf of our Director General, Secretary Isidro La Peña, I would like to thank you for inviting TESDA in this consultation. I would like to inform the members of the two committees that TESDA is supportive and promotes online, distance, and blended mode of learning. The TESDA online program, which was a brainchild by no less than our former Secretary and Director General, Senator Joel Villanueva, was launched in 2012. He was the one who had aggressively pushed for its implementation. It was created basically to reconsider new learning modes and to expand TVET capacity by accommodating those who cannot enter the TVET institutions and to also broaden access to the TVET programs. With the advent of the ICT fast-tracking the expansion of the scope through e-learning was an opportunity because e-learning would increase the absorptive capacity of TVIs to deliver TVET programs and services. The TESDA online program provides free TVET online courses and learning materials designed to be taken at the learner's space, and at their own time. The program is created for students and out-of-school youths, unemployed adults, overseas workers, and professionals who would like to take TVET courses at the comfort of their desktops or laptop computers. The TOP has become the prominent alternative mode of TVET learning during the quarantine period. It has continued to gain traction with users reaching up to 850,566 from the start of the quarantine on March 16 to August 3, 2020, which brings the total users from 2012 to now to 2.1 million since it was implemented, of course, in 2012. It has now 71 online courses across 13 categories. Allow me also to share that we have issued TESDA Circular number 62, series of 2020 on the guidelines in implementing flexible learning in Tibet to provide a conducive environment that is responsive to the shifting needs and requirements of the society. Flexible learning in Tibet provides the TVIs the option to adapt face-to-face, online learning, blended, or distance learning, depending on their institutional capacity, trainers' capability, learners' access to learning resources and technology, and of course to IATF resolutions and LGU ordinances. A TVI may adopt the combination of distance learning or face-to-face in delivering TVET programs that will require the use of large or complicated learning equipment. These guidelines has been cascaded and rolled out among the TVIs and is continuously being promoted by our regional and provincial offices. As we are now shifting to a more flexible learning mode, TESDA is strengthening its TESDA online program, and we have also trained 3,000 learning facilitators in order to implement this training program nationwide. To the honorable members of the Committees on Higher and Technical Education and Science and Technology, TESDA remains committed to the Open Distance Learning Act. However, we deem that with the changing needs of the economy and for the ODL Act to be more responsive, there is a need to review and maybe expand the coverage of the said Act and include the Department of Education. As we are now forced by this pandemic to deliver education and training using flexible delivery modes, all the education agencies, DepEd, TESDA, and SHED should be working together to ensure standard and a more holistic provision of online learning and distance education. With this, we also further recommend that a TWG or a technical working group within the Philippine Qualifications Framework National Coordinating Council should be formed to ensure alignment and concurrence to Philippine educational framework, whether traditional face-to-face or flexible and distance modalities. All education agencies should have a dedicated office that will monitor the implementation of the ODL and will be in charge to design, develop, conceptualize, and implement standards and policies for online and distance education of their respective agencies. Mr. Chair, the move of the legislature to look into the readiness and preparedness of all education institutions, students, and faculty to shift to online modes of learning in the light of the continuing threat of the coronavirus and the status of the internet connectivity in the country is indeed laudable. With the pandemic, the need for better internet connectivity and the readiness of the education community to adapt to the new normal of learning and teaching is of paramount concern. The DICT should be put to task also in ensuring the availability and accessibility of fast internet platform, especially in far-flung areas. With the shift to a blended learning modality, the more the technology must be made available. Lastly, TESDA supports Senate Bill 1538, which provides moratorium on student loan payments during disasters and other emergencies. Given the circumstances being experienced by the families due to loss or lack of income, in disasters or during disasters, students will not have the means to pay for their loan payments. It is recommended further by TESDA that safeguard measures for HEIs and TVIs should be provided in the bill to ensure repayment of the student loans. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, DDG Rose Ordaneta. Sabi nga ni Manang Aimee, nasa, sa online learning, di tayo at hirap tayong mag-online hearing. We're still having problems with connection and I check with Globe, talagang may problema yung connection nila. But anyway, before we continue, our dear colleague, Senator Bongo, wanted to make a comment. Senator Bongo, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, and to the resource persons present today. Good day to all. We are all aware that the pandemic continues to threaten the lives of many Filipinos in the country. The norm which we all lived before will not be the same once we get through this pandemic. Yet, before we cross the bridge, we are faced with many challenges at present. Today, we will be tackling different measures that will hopefully address the woes our higher education system is currently facing. Despite the current health crisis, our aim is to ease the burden for our students and also their families. Bago pa man nangyari ang pandemya, marami nang kinakaharap na problema ang ating mga estudyante at kanilang pamilya. Libre man ang ating mga kolehiyo at iba pang government vocational schools, hindi pa rin ito sapat para makapag-aaral na maayos ang ating mga estudyante. Marami pa rin sa ating mga pag-aaral ang mahihirap at naghahanap ng paraan para maituwid ang kanilang mga nagugutom na mura habang nag-aaral. Ano pa ngayong may pandemya na? Ibig sabihin, mas mahirap po ang sitwasyon sa ngayon. Sa gitna ng economic crisis na dulot ng COVID-19, aminin natin marami sa ating mag-aaral in the tertiary and higher education ay mga working students. Naghahanap buhay sila para may pangtustos sa pang-araw-araw na gastos. This is why I ask you, my colleagues, to tackle this issue of shifting to online platforms with careful consideration. We need to look not only in the government's capability to adjust, but also in our students' capability to respond in the new norm of education. The online platform, this is so that we can continue to improve our education system and bridge the gaps of learning without giving more stress mentally, emotionally, and financially. Pag-aralan nating mabuti ang mga hakbang na ito, hindi lang problema sa pag-aaral ang kinakaharap nila, kundi pag-iisip kung paano mabuhay. Mr. Chair, our traditional education system will never be the same as we go through the health crisis without a vaccine. I reiterate my stand, no vaccine, no face-to-face traditional classes. Yan rin po ang stand ng ating Pangulo. Anhin po natin ang another year level kung magkakasakit naman ang mga bata. We all understand the importance of education, yet we must also remind ourselves that above all, the right to live must be of utmost priority. Huwag po natin biglain at pilitin at baka naman tumugo. Kapag binigla natin ang pagbalik sa normal na klase, buhay po ng mga bata ang tinataya natin. Kapag pinilit natin na ng makabagong paraan ng online learning, duduguin rin ang estudyante kung hindi sila makapag-adjust ng maayos. Kaya palagi kong paalala sa DepEd, CHED at iba pang ahensya sa sektor ng edukasyon, pag-aralan po natin mabuti. Importante na makapag-aral pa rin ang mga bata. Hindi masayang ang isang taon, pero para sa paraang hindi sila mapipilitang ma-expose sa sakit. Sa kagustuhan rin nating mag-adapt ng makabagong pamamaraan ng pagtuturo, siguraduhin natin na hindi mapunta sa bata ang burden. Schools and education officials must guide students in order for them to adjust to the new modes of learning. Kung sa traditional na paraan ay nahihirapan ng mga mahihirap na bata na makapagtapos sa pag-aaral, paano pa kaya ngayon? Mapipilitan silang mag-adjust sa bagong teknolohiya habang hinaharap ang dagdag na kahirapan na dulot ng COVID-19. Sana naman po ay walang bumagsak na estudyante dahil sa kulang sa kagamitan, walang access sa teknolohiya at hindi sapat na kaalaman sa bagong modes of learning ma-implementa ngayon. Kung tayo nga po sa Senado ay nahirapan po sa Zoom, tulad ngayon, napuputol-putol po ang ating connection, paano na lang sila, yung mga estudyante. Mas lalo po silang mahirapan kung tayo ay hirap na hirap po sa online connection sa panahon ito. Kaya nga po nagalit ang ating Pangulo dahil sa mabagal nating internet access. So kung tayo po ay hinahirapan sa online learnings at naging biktima ng mabagal na internet, paano pa po sila? Marami pong mga estudyante ang walang laptop o internet access. Maraming estudyante ang mahirap. Siguraduhin natin na lahat ng mga estudyante natin ay mabibigyan ng pantay na oportunidad sa ilalim ng ating learning continuity plan in all levels of education. As we prepare our students, we should also equip our professors and the teaching staff to be able to adapt to these new modes of teaching. Lalo po tayo ay kailangang matuto upang maturuan ang ating mga kabataan sa panahon ng new normal. And since education is a right, and as this chamber tackles on our online education shift, we must be ready to invest in technology, resources, and training so that every Filipino student can have access to proper and quality education despite the current situation. We also need to formulate the right kind of framework where our higher education and tertiary institutions can operate. In order to achieve an efficient and effective online learning system, as a legislator, we need to inspect lahat po ay dapat nating pag-aralan muna ang lahat at mabigyan po pantay-pantay na oportunidad ng ating mga kabataan. Lalong-lalo na po in this time of pandemic. Maraming salamat po. Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Bongo. I'd like to put on record that I share the sentiment of our good senator, and we have been saying that we have very strong reservation yung dun sa face-to-face learning. At ito nga sa blended, importante talaga na mapag-usapan at mapag-aralan mabuti dahil gaya nga nung binanggit natin kanina, tinext tayo ni Senator Amy, nag-online hearing tayo, hirap na hirap. Pero paano pa kaya yung online learning? But we will continue to we'll continue to talk about this, and at this juncture, may I now give the floor to our first senator to ask questions. Huli na yung chair, magpaparaya na yung chair. Kay Senator Amy Marcos, the distinguished lady from Ilocos, fresh from Ilocos. And let's find out if she has a very good internet connection in Ilocos. Senator Amy, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. May konting tanong lang ako tungkol dito nga sa CHED. Obviously, it's early days, pero I think very important para sa CHED, yung focused effort to set standards on online and distance learning. Sangkatutak ka nakikita nating material na libre at hinahayaan na gamitin, pero sa kabila nito, yung iba naman palpak, hindi masyadong maganda yung materials, hindi matutukin na talagang educational. Perhaps CHED can enlighten us, Chair Popoy, kung paano natin may standardize at saka at least may konting quality control kasi yung ibang eskwelahan, napansin ko dito sa amin, kung ano-ano naman ginagamit, hindi naman maituturing na tertiary educational standard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, if I may be allowed to respond.
Yes, Chairman Popoy.
Last June, we launched the Philippines CHED Connect. That is an online portal where 18 universities, both in the Philippines and abroad, as well as our partners in international education, contributed online materials that can be used by faculty and students. So these are very good materials because they have been vetted by universities that have a long history already of offering open distance learning, including universities like UP OpenU, Mapua, De La Salle, STI, and the others. And this Philippines CHED Connect is open for all universities so that when their faculty redesign their syllabus, identify materials that they will use for flexible learning, they can get it from here. So this is the initial step that the Commission has done to make sure that there are quality materials put in one site that can be used by faculty members. We've also entered into agreements with companies that supply ebooks so that they can provide limited access to ebooks for free. For example, a faculty member is allowed to download as many as 50 ebooks from the site for free before they start paying. And we are looking into other sources of good materials that we can put in. So that's the first step. The second step.
Yes, Chair. I think there are copious amounts of online materials, many of them free, na magagamit na ngayon. Kaya nga lang, ang concern ko, as usual, medyo mahina tayo sa M&E, yung monitoring and evaluation. Kasi kung minsan nakakalusot yung walang kwenta, no, na mga materials at yun na lang ang ginagamit para madali. So I was thinking, perhaps in addition attention to looking for all the freebies available right now and all the initiatives on your part. Maybe even if it's very early days, we start already with a monitoring and evaluation set up so that hindi naman mag-suffer at magkaroon ng unlearning and loss of quality.
Yes, I agree, Senator Marcos. We do need to put a very good monitoring and evaluation system because we have too many universities of different sizes, different locations, different capacities. We don't worry about the top universities who have been doing open distance learning for a long time. We don't need to monitor them. What we expect them to do is to help the less prepared universities by training their teachers, making their materials available. What we have encouraged is that in the region, per region, that the universities form a consortium among themselves, both public and private, so they can help each other and also so that the good and better prepared universities can share their resources with the less prepared universities. Yun namang problema ng mga faculty na baka kung ano-ano na lang ginagamit. It is not because the faculty members don't want to provide quality education. Sometimes it is because their training is not, good enough or not prepared to do it. Second, their source of materials is not, they don't know where to get the materials. And number three, they're not learning from other educators. So pag may regional consortium, they can actually share materials, they can learn from each other, and they can help each other. That is what we're doing. So Region 5, for example, all the public and private universities in Region 5 have formalized a consortium already. Region 8, meron na rin sila. Yung ibang region, ang nagko-consortium pa lang yung malalaking universities. Ang concern natin is the smaller private universities, those with less than 1,000 students. Kasi they don't have the financial capacity to do their own training. They don't have the financial capacity to buy online materials. Yun ang dapat targetin, Senator.
Yes, but I think carrot and stick yan. On one hand, syempre tutulungan natin at bigyan natin ng incentives yung maliliit. Unang-una, nagsasarahan na yan eh. Pero sa kabila nun, ang takot natin, maging online diploma mill yan. Kasi, eto nga, very convenient excuse na bigay na lang ng diploma, automatic yung promotion, hindi naman natin alam kung ano talaga ang tinapos ng bata dahil hindi nakakapag-monitor yung CHED. So I enjoin CHED to please look at that. And at the same time, eto, may salita kasi dito sa probinsya na ang damot-damot doon ng UP. Ayan, the usual complaint na Imperial Manila, ang damot ng UP sa materyales. Hirap na hirap ang mga probinsyano mag-access ng UP-developed materials when in fact doon sa Open Distance Learning Act, mandated talaga siya na tulungan lahat ng HEI. Meron ba kayong masasabi tungkol sa reklamong yon?
Narinig ko na po yung reklamong yan. Ang aking sagot, meron hong kasing galing o mas magagaling pa na private universities na mas bukas tumulong tulad ng De La Salle St. Benil, Mapua. Mapua is sharing the video lectures of their top faculty members so other universities. Ang hiningi po
namin... Yes, that's right. Ang ganda-ganda nga ng kanilang engineering online eh.
Yes. Kaya sabi ko sa Mapua, pwede bang hiramin namin muna yung materials nyo kahit na isang school year lang? Hiram lang muna kasi ginastusan nila ito. Sabi ko, and within that 1 year, we will fund projects so that the other universities can start doing it on their own. And
yes, I'm very familiar with the Mapua computer engineering, and indeed they've been very, very generous. Lalo na Lasal, miski saan halos mada-download mo. Ang problema, nasa batas na UP. Higit sa lahat, public public funds yan. Bakit hindi naman sila nag-share kahit naman sa SUC at pati sa maliliit na eskwelahan? Siguro, palibasa, kwento mo nga, galing ka sa meeting ng UP, pakisabi naman, hindi naman ito time na maging madamot o talagang ipagkait sa mas maliliit na eskwelahan ng mga materyales.
Pipilitin ho namin ni Senator Villanueva sa susunod na Board of Regents meeting ng UP na pwersahin sila kung hindi man nagbibigay. Pero dito ho, nandito ang presidente ng Our Lady of Fatima. Marami din ho silang magagandang online materials. Ipinapahiram din ho nila ng libre. Ang nakikita ko po, ang mas masipag magbayanihan ay yung magagaling na private universities at yung
Sinabi nyo.
universities. Yan po ang obserbasyon kong personal.
Manang I just wanted
yes.
to tell you na nandito kasama natin ang Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities, yung private, yung PACO, no? President Caroline Enriquez. Kasama din natin yung Philippine Association of State Universities and Colleges, President Tirso Ronquillo. And at this juncture, let me also recognize Senator, our majority floor leader is with us, Senator Mig Subiri. And of course, ating representative from Dole, Asik Nikki Tutay. Please proceed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yun lang. Kung may bayanihan sa COVID, dapat naman meron rin bayanihan sa distance learning. Yun lang ang sasabihin ko. At dapat pilitin yung UP. Ang laki-laki naman ng budget nila na nakukuha sa gobyerno. So, public property na rin ang kanilang mga online materials. Yun lang.
Senator Amy Marcos, perhaps it's a good segue to recognize a president of Pasok or Paco? Pasok President Tirso Ronquillo. Sir, may we hear from you?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for inviting us in Pasok. Mr. Chair, can I share my slide? Recently, Mr. Chair, we surveyed our SUCs, and we are very happy to join this Senate meeting on the online distance education. We got 17 responses. In fact, we have 112 members of PASOK, and recently they just gave us this data of 29 or 79 SUCs. You might ask why only 79. We are now having hard time getting this data. Maybe that can be connected to poor connectivity also in some SUCs. However, just to give you a feel of what's the real situation on the ground, there are 79 SUCs reported that there are internet service provider in their area. And there are 60 SUCs that can be serviced by PLDT, Smart, and DICT, 59 by Globe, 12 by Converge, and a few SUCs with small local providers in their area. I have here a lot of data, and I will just be presenting some highlights of this survey. Almost all of the SUCs serviced by DICT is still subscribed to other ISPs, and we are happy to hear the report of our colleague from DICT. In fact, Wi-Fi of DICT is really providing free Wi-Fi among SUCs, and they are continuously doing it, and we are happy to know that that is a big augmentation to the current internet service providers among us SUCs, which we are paying at a cost. The top ISPs that service SUCs are PLDT Smart, 50 of them, and Globe, 42 of them. There are 39 SUCs, which comprise 49%, with only one provider. 23 of the 79 SUCs, or 29%, with two providers, and 17 SUCs, or 22%, with three or more providers. On the average, out of these 79 SUCs, the average speed per month of internet in SUCs is 322 only Mbps. On the total number of faculty without working knowledge on ICT, there are around 18% of our faculty out of 3,893. And we are saying that the total number of faculty who are already using online teaching platform at the moment is 78%. So we still need to close the gap. There are around 22% which are about to use this online teaching platform. That's why we in PASOK is helping each other to really support our faculty members. We are talking about the online ready materials for use of our faculty members. The total number of faculty members with ready available materials, electronic materials, are 82%. So we are still supporting 18% of our faculty members to produce or develop their online materials. And we are happy to say that even at home, almost all of our faculty members have connection to internet, 99%, Madam, Mr. Chair. Total number of faculty whose means of communication is mobile phone only, there are 45%. And of course, other might have laptop, but there are still 45% whose means is still mobile phone. Total number of students who have internet access at home, only around 30% or 31%. Total number of students whose means of communication is mobile phone only, so 37%. And number of students without any means of communication, it's actually 8%. We still need to close this gap, 8%. 59 SUCs or 75% reported that they are using learning management system. This has improved a lot, Mr. Chair. At the start of the pandemic, we initially give the figure at around 20%, but we responded quickly. We realigned some of our resources so that we can have LMS. Now, we can say that 75% of our SUCs are already using LMS and prepared for the coming school year. Most commonly used LMS, G Suite. Good to note that there are open source LMS, which are good LMS, the G Suite, the Moodle, even Schoology. There are a lot of pre-LMS. And it's, I think, a good transition to use this free LMS. On the average, there are 9 existing computer laboratories per campus, a total of 707 for 79 SUCs existing laboratory in different campuses. Also, on the average, SUC needs an additional of 15 computer labs still. We still have this gap. So, 1,179 for 70 SUCs told us that still there is a need for this additional computer laboratories to support this online learning. 61 SUCs using the medium of fiber in their internet connection, while 18 are still using copper. So it's also a challenge on the speed of connectivity. When asked about the average annual budget of SUCs on ICT, this is combined software and hardware in the last 3 years, is they are spending around 15 million or 15.7 annual expenditure on ICT. When asked about the mode of delivery in terms of flexibility, 26 online synchronous or asynchronous modular remote or combined, only 33% can participate. Now, these are just some detail, and I think I will need to give the copy of this to the chair. And as I have mentioned, at the time of this reporting, around 17% we just have to complete. I think our data, but this is almost as 80%, Mr. Chair, of the responses of our SUCs, Mr. Chair, of the responses of our SUCs. 40% of SUC student population will undergo pure online, has the capability to go pure online on synchronous teaching and learning, an average of 4,695 for each SUCs. And there are 51% of our students who can go only for asynchronous, meaning they cannot participate real time. We have to give the copy in advance so that they can get these learning resources. So almost half, Mr. Chair. So that can be, it can be learned that there is really a challenge on the internet because they cannot participate on real time. 34% of our student population will undergo remote distance teaching and learning, an average of 4,277 for each SUCs. On the possibility of using radio station for the delivery of teaching and learning, most of our SUCs do not own radio station. Only 26 or 33% of SUCs responding to the survey reported that they own a radio station in their college or university. Prior to COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Chair, only 10 SUCs, or around 13%, are practicing open distance learning, and most are not, as reported by CHED Chair Popoy de Vera. And we are, a number of our SUCs with capability already, even before pandemic, applied to CHED on the permit to deliver this open distance learning. So these are just some data, Mr. Chair, on these 10 SUCs. We may learn from this table. Number of students enrolled in open distance learning is only 0.41%. That is the average of 486 for these 10 SUCs, with a total of 4,857. Number of students enrolled in open distance learning in academic year 2019-2020 is only 0.34%, Mr. Chair. So that's why we support the passage of this current bill being discussed in this meeting, that there has to be a measure of really ensuring that open distance learning will be available, and PASOK support that it has to be passed without delay, Mr. Chair. So thank you very much, and we'll give you this data after this presentation.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, Joel?
Yes,
Yeah.
you have the floor.
Yeah. Yes, apparently, as Mr. Ronquillo said, President Ronquillo said, maliban sa DICT, nagsusubscribe pa rin sa Smart, Number One, Globe, and other providers. Dahil ba walang kwenta yung DICT na nagsusubscribe pa sa iba? Kasi yung intention sa gobyerno niyan, bibigay yung DICT para makalibre na yung mga eskwelahan natin. Yung pala, doble-doble pa rin ang binabayaran at mini-maintain ng ating mga SUC. Is it because the DICT is very, very poor quality? Feel free to say so, because as governor, I opened the one in our local SUC, and during the opening, the internet failed.
Before you answer, Chairman Ronquillo, let me just recognize the Chairperson of the Committee on Basic Education, Senator Win Gatchalian, is with us online. Thank you very much, Senator Win, for joining us. And before you answer, Chairman Ronquillo, we'd like to put on record that despite the challenges that we are facing today, the Bayanihan 2 is now on the bicameral conference, and we hope that our dear colleagues, especially Senator Aimee and our chair, Senator Angara, will continue to support yung amendment natin na 3 billion pesos for our SUCs para makatulong po sa inyo sa gitna nitong pandemya ito. Sige po, Sir Ronquillo, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, we are happy to note that support initiated by Senate that will really help SUCs as observed by good Senator Amy Marcos. Totoo po that we still have this internet service provider and we are paying. We know that the ICT is still rolling this out for all SUCs, but before pandemic po, talaga pong many of our SUCs still resort to this commercial, and we have to pay. That is approved by our respective board because there is no available internet which is free. So we need to undergo the Republic Act 9184 on the procurement of this internet service provider. Now we are happy that because of this pandemic, the ICT now is supporting SUCs, and maybe by before this year ends or before this semester, first semester will end, they will be able to roll out for. But take note, I don't know what's the speed or what's the bandwidth which can be available because, of course, the bandwidth will be shared by thousands or millions of students. The Wi-Fi that will be connected to the campuses may not be sufficient because, of course, it has to be shared to all students. And that would be a challenge. Yes, there is presence of the ICT, but that's why we need to resort even to augment our bandwidth requirement to other subscriber or other provider of this internet, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, nandito ba yung DICT?
Yes,
Meron mang kinatawan ng DICT?
Yes,
Perhaps
ma'am.
we can, but before you say something, engineer, President Ronquillo, ano yung percentage? So, ilan yung nagbabayad, ilan yung hindi na nagbabayad?
I will browse my data, Mr. Chair. Okay. It is
para makita natin yung need for DICT, ano pa yung challenges na kailangan nilang tahakin?
In this survey, Mr. Chair, this is a quick survey among our 700 SUCs. There are, at the time of this survey, recently, I think this until yesterday, there are 33 SUCs serviced by the ICT, and we have 106 campuses in 33 SUCs. Of course, other SUCs have many campuses, and good to hear. Good to hear that.
Thank you. The ICT, would you like to respond?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity.
May I also ask our guests, resource persons, that if you're not talking, can you mute your computers so we can hear clearly? Pag hindi po kayo recognize, kindly mute your computers, please. Thank you. Thank you. Engineer, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. Now, yung free Wi-Fi for all, which is the Republic Act 10929, ang nilalagay po nito is for the public use. Wala po itong password. This is for the student. Kaya po may mga several hotspot kami na nilalagay. Not really just for the intention of the operation of the school. This is before the pandemic. But that's why yung mga school po, yung mga SUC, still nagsusubscribe pa rin sila, but that is for the purpose of their operation. Yung po yung, kaya yung merong may SUC na meron din sila mini-maintain na network nila, and then the DICT is putting or installing the free Wi-Fi. This is just for the student, public, or even the teachers that they want to use the connectivity. Yung po yun.
I'm sorry, what you mean? I'm sorry, Mr. Eric from the ICT. Ang sinasabi ninyo, yung free Wi-Fi sa campus para lamang gamitin ng mga estudyante in their free time, recreational, hindi niya kaya yung educational, hindi ko masyadong naintindihan. Ano yung purpose ng free Wi-Fi kung hindi nagagamit ng classroom?
Yes, ma'am. Yung free Wi-Fi kasi, ang purpose niya, the intention is to give the student, not only in their free time, but to give the student do sa kanilang, para magkaroon sila ng connectivity. In fact,
pero hindi nga magamit sa eskwela. Free Wi-Fi sa eskwela, prioritize kasi educational tool. Pero kung hindi naman magamit as a teaching mode, para pa yung free Wi-Fi, ano yung capacity ng free Wi-Fi ng DICT talaga sa campus?
Yes, ma'am. Ngayon po, because of this pandemic, we are closely coordinating with the SUC kung paano aayusin.
Pero ano ang capability? Bigyan mo ako ng bandwidth sa ngayon, pre-COVID, at ano yung pinapangako post-COVID bago matapos ang taon?
Ngayon po ma'am, ang capacity na binibigay ng free wifi is CIR, committed internet rate. Depende po sa SUC. Yung mga SUC na malalaki, we provided 40 MB committed internet rate. Committed internet rate po ito ma'am, hindi po ito up to. For those small, yung mga annexes nila, 10 MB po. Now, yun nga,
Pero
10
40
megabits per
MB,
second po ma'am.
40 MB, pamilya lang yan.
Ma'am, committed internet rate po siya ma'am, hindi po siya up to. Right now, kasi yung ibang sinusubscribe sa telco, up to lang po yun, it's shared. Opo.
And why is it? Why do they prefer the up to kesa sa DICT kung talagang sinasabi ninyo na committed rate?
Maybe because na meron pa silang connectivity before bago kami maglagay. Ngayon nung maglagay
Madali naman kung okay sana yung DICT, pinaputol na you can give us the data that you have and at the same time yung pangako na mai-improve kailan before year end kasi yun ang sinabi. Let me merely manifest, Mr. Chair, I have no desire to badger the DICT, but merely to state that, in my opinion at least, I have seen the educational sector and their heroic efforts to cope with the pandemic. But really, we have failed them in terms of the internet and digital infrastructure.
Thank you, Senator Amy. Engineer, yung hinihingi po ni Senator Amy, pa-submit na lang po sa committee. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue, again, let me ask our resource persons, distinguished colleagues, to mute your computers, please, para hindi po makasapaw. Pa-mute lang po pag hindi po tayo nagsasalita. We'll give the floor to Philippine Association of... Yes,
Mr. Chair. Sen Binay.
Nancy. Okay. Senator Binay, and then we'll give the floor to the private sector.
Before tayo pumunta dun sa private sector, gusto ko lang itanong kay Pres Ronquillo kung ang ibig sabihin ho ba neto, wala tayong SUC na talagang lang siya, nakarely sa DICT? Meron ho ba tayong SUC na talagang DICT lang yung ginagamit at walang augmentation from other networks?
Ngayon po, Mr. Chair, based on our data that we gathered, here, there are 33 serviced by DICT and still 46 not DICT. That's why these SUCs, 60 of them, are still being serviced by other internet service provider like Duterte and Smart.
So ibig sabihin ng Pres Ronquillo, yung 33, hindi na ho sila nagsusubscribe sa Globe and or Smart?
Still, Madam Chair, they are there. Still, they are subscribing to other because as presented po ng colleagues from the DICT, only at some Wi-Fi hotspots. Usually po, mga open spaces. Sa mga classroom po, we need to provide, katulad po ngayon, naglalagay kami ng Wi-Fi hotspot sa bawat classroom namin. Ang sa DICT po ay sa mga open hotspot lang po. Kaya po, kailangan pa rin natin subscribe. Let's say sa Batangas University, this time around, we need around 3 gigabits po. 10 Gbps, 3 gigabits per second. Ang connected po, committed internet rate po as per DICT is around 40 MB. Because we have around 40,000 students, so we need to get a wider bandwidth or a bigger bandwidth to accommodate. We understand po, there are many SUCs that can be serviced by DICT, but try to imagine this 40 MB. Talaga pong kulang po ito, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pres Ronquillo. Mr. Chair, siguro pwede pa for submission na lang from the SUCs. Baka pwedeng makahingi ng comparison dun sa 33 na nasa service na ng DICT at dun sa hindi, kung magkano yung nagagastos nila dun sa augmentation. Para lang for us to get a picture kung nakakatipid ba tayo dun sa free wifi for the SUCs or technically it's just the same cost. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, please, President Ronquillo, please comply with the request of Senator Nancy. I think it's important so that we would find out kung gaano kalaki yung naitutulong ng DICT at ano pa yung mga pwede nilang gawin to improve their services. Yes, Chairman De Vera, you wanted to say something?
Yes, in the Commission and the ICT...
Can you mute your computer? Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah, the Commission and the ICT has rolled out a project to measure the connectivity per campus. Because what is happening in many state universities is malakas yung signal sa main. That is where they have invested resources. But the connectivity is very varied across the campuses of each state university. So the ICT has given a measuring tool that we have given out to all the state universities to measure their actual connectivity per campus. So all for the close to 400 campuses. We can submit that data to the committee, Mr. Chair, if that is needed. This data will now be used by the Commission and the ICT to design and prepare for the smart campuses funding that is coming in. We need hard data on the ground kasi very variable across campuses. Yung mga external campuses na malalayo, usually may mga external campuses na wala pang signal hanggang ngayon. In fact, there are some main campuses of SUCs that have very intermittent to practically no signal because the telco providers in the area don't have sufficient towers to send the signals. But we can send that to the committee, Mr. Chair. But as a general rule,
yes,
my assessment is practically all SUCs are subscribing to the telcos for internet connection. That is the reality on the ground because the signal strength that they need for their operations is very high. Not just because of the volume of students, but because of the activities of the university itself. So they have to pay the telcos to increase their bandwidth. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Chairman Popoy, please do so. And I think it would help kahit na isubmit nila para mabangga natin itong mga data na ito. Thank you very much. Actually, I'm having a hard time even right now, with my internet connection. But let's give the opportunity now for the representative of PACU, the Philippine Association of Colleges and University President Caroline Enriquez. Ma'am, you have the floor.
To that.
You have the floor.
Yes.
Mute po kayo, ma'am. There.
It's going from mute to not mute. Ako? Right now.
Sorry, ma'am. We can't hear you and it appears we're having problems with the connection.
Kaya nito ngayon kay Paco, nagkakasabay ngayon ng pag-unmute ng isang station.
Okay, ma'am, you have the floor now. I think it's clearer now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kinokontrol namin sila dito.
Yung host, Joey Tunak.
But allow me to say thank you first to all the senators for inviting PACU, Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities. Offhand, we know it's very hard to get government support, especially for the private sector, considering there's really probably not much money going around. So what we have done in the private sector is, upon the request also of our chair, is to form some sort of consortium. So with regards PACU, what we have done with PACU is we have negotiated a contract with a US-based company so that part of our virtual laboratories we have managed to bring down the rate from $50 to about $3 a person, so that in terms of virtual laboratories, we're able to deliver it using quality online learning experiences. So what we did is we have about 56 schools from across the nation, from Luzon all the way up to Mindanao, who participated in this, and about 60,000 to 70,000 students who can avail of good quality virtual lab experience, especially for the Gen Ed. And then on top of that also, we have tried several times to talk with IATF and also with some of the DICT, and asking and putting in a request for internet connectivity, especially fiber optics connectivity. Since it's already close to our opening of classes, what we did was we negotiated on our own with the different telcos, and we asked for special rates for our students in the private sector, to which the two telcos naman acceded. But nonetheless, it's still a cost to our students. So our special request here, if there's a way that we could be also part of the plans of the government for interconnectivity. Although what the two telcos have promised us is they are willing to provide free Wi-Fi access in our campus, but only for a short time. Like similar to the experience that you get in the airport when you're given 30 minutes, and the 30 minutes that you will have will be just enough time for you to download your asynchronous materials. So our ask here is if the government could also help us with this request for internet connectivity, maybe through the local government units, because I heard that some of the local government units are already laying out plans for fiber optics connectivity. That's about it, Senator, for our ask from the private sector. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, President Enriquez. We'd like to find out if Senator Gatchalian or Senator Bina wanted to local colleges and universities.
As regards Senate Bill 1459, establishing Tertiary Online Learning and Distance Education Office, ALCO interposed no objection, particularly setting the prescribed standards for curriculum requirements for online and distance learning, same true with the development of necessary policy guidelines and quality standards for the extensive implementation of online and distance learning in times of emergency. Same true with Senate Bill 1538, setting moratorium on students' loan payment during disaster and other emergencies. And so with Senate Bill 376, defining the preparedness of higher education institution, students and faculty to shift to online modes of learning. And proposed by Senator Villanueva, same true with Senate Bill number 383, defining further the implementation of open distance learning. Please note that the local colleges and universities have been very compliant with the advisory set by the Commission on Higher Education. As early as April 16, 2020, we're able to conduct a survey among 119 local colleges and universities in terms of gadgets and internet connectivity. And while other institutions have much problem on this, the situation, the local colleges and universities are not similarly situated. Local colleges are usually operating in a certain locality, thus delivery via flexible learning, blended and online is very much feasible. Seventh advisory, we've requested 119 local colleges and universities to submit the transition plan, which defines the framework on how local colleges will implement the online learning. The Senate bills being proposed today, of course, will define further and will strengthen further the initial implementation of online learning in among local colleges and universities in the Philippines. Your Honor, the local colleges will submit its position paper as regards the bill now being deliberated. Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity extended to us.
Give our second, thank you very much. Bakit ganun? Echo yata. Okay, thank you. At this juncture, echo eh. Mr. Arcega, can you mute your computer? Thank you. If Senator Gatchalian would like to, yes, Senator Gatchalian, you have the floor, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'm very sorry for being late. I was invited to speak in a webinar which ended almost 2 hours. But I would like, I don't know if this has been tackled earlier, but I would like to know from the Chair Commissioner, in light of this new MECQ, and also it seems to me that it's becoming quite uncertain again in the next few weeks. I would like to know from Chairman Popoy, what are the guidelines under this MECQ, and what will be the guidelines if ever MECQ will be extended? I know some schools are slated to take enrollment or open this time around, no? But I think this MECQ threw a lot of the plan. So I just want to get some updates from Ched as to the guidelines under MECQ and moving forward, whatever the situation will be.
Thank you.
Before you answer, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Popoy, before you answer the query of Senator Gatchalian, I'd like to also add to that question what you mentioned a while ago about the access or the status of internet connection to various SUCs in the country, Chairman Popoy, kasi kanina you made mention something which is somehow contrary doon sa statements made in the House of Representatives by Commissioner Alibin. Sabi niya po doon, at least 102 out of the 111 SUCs have internet connectivity and leaving roughly 9 SUCs with no internet connection. So we just want this to be clarified. No, we wanted to know what SUCs are these and where they are located and what have been done to help SUCs. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Naka-mute po kayo.
Yeah, let me answer the query of Chairman Villanueva first. When we say connectivity in SUCs, as a general rule, almost all, kukunti lang yung SUCs who have not reported at all that they have connectivity. But the problem is the connectivity varies across campuses. That is really the big problem. The main campus usually has a strong connection. The extension campuses usually have weaker connection. And the state universities have not really invested much to improve the connectivity of their external campuses. So, so the delivery system, when you say they will now deliver it through flexible mode, the problem is the students in the external campuses. Yung main campus, it's not usually a problem in SUCs. May mga areas na mahina pero meron. So that is the situation. So when Commissioner Alibin said there are very few who don't have connectivity, there are really very few. Practically, dun sa report sa amin, halos wala yung nag-claim na wala silang connectivity. Pero may mga campus sila na walang connectivity at all. That is the problem of... Kaya nga, we need the data. That's why we rolled out a project with the IT. So that if we have the data, pag nag-board meeting yung SUCs and the board will now require the president to improve connectivity, the board will know what campuses will be targeted, what will be funded For example, in my case, yung SOOX ko na Island SOOX, ang binigyan ko ng additional funding from CHED ay maglagay ng cable for the external campuses that have weak connectivity. So we have to be very strategic based on available data across campuses. So we are getting that, we have that data now to make decisions for connectivity. Yung tanong ni Senator Gatchalian, under IATF rules, if it is MECQ, there can be no face-to-face classes. So no face-to-face classes at all in MECQ. The policy adopted by the IATF for the opening of classes last May 13 was that it will be a rolling enrollment based on the delivery mode. So universities that are using full online, they can open as early as June. So some of them have. Ateneo has, De La Salle Benilde has opened 20-degree programs fully online. So wala tayong problema do sa online. Those that will be using flexible mode na blended learning, they can open in August. And then the decision of IATF was those who will need significant face-to-face can open September or later. But remember, that was in May, and the data on the health situation in May is different from the data now. So we will have to revise that in the IATF to move that portion of significant face-to-face to make sure that the students are safe. So ang umaandal pa lang na mode ngayon, yung full online at saka yung flexible na online and offline. But no face-to-face policy exists. Now, the IATF has also adopted a policy that for MGCQ areas, there will be the option of face-to-face so long as they coordinate with local governments, they comply with health protocols, and they comply with CHED guidelines. We have crafted the guidelines already, Mr. Chair. We have consulted both the public and private universities. 2 days ago, I consulted with the local governments on rolling it out. But we are targeting that this will be done in January, when the health situation is hopefully under control, and we are initially limiting it to low-risk MGCQ areas. So that is the target. So between now and January, we are talking with our universities to check on the ground some universities that are reconfiguring their classrooms and campuses for some face-to-face. And the plan is I will ask my fellow commissioners, I will ask Secretary, the implementer of the National Task Force on COVID, Secretary Charlie Galvez, to join me. I will ask our friends in the media to join me, and also local governments, to inspect on the ground how the classroom is being reconfigured for universities that are going to do it. And then we will see a prototype on what is the best way to do it, ventilation-wise, entrance and exit, and tell the other universities, if you plan to have some face-to-face, this is the prototype that you can adopt. We plan to bring the media because the problem now is everybody is operating in a climate of fear, basically. And we need to visualize how the classroom, if ever we will have face-to-face, will look like. I was told by President Caroline Enriquez that Our Lady of Fatima plans to reconfigure their classroom. STI has also told me. So at the appropriate time, when they are ready to show how they have re-engineered their classroom, I will go on the ground together with Secretary Galvez to see if it is a workable option, and then prepare it for the second semester. So realistically, even if this was approved by the IATF, realistically, the rollout would be on the second semester because of the health situation that we have right now. So that would be the response, Senator Gatchalian.
Chair Popoy, so in short, as long as it's MECQ, wala pong face-to-face. There will be no face-to-face. Now, if,
Yes.
if the situation improves, for example, it becomes GCQ, are the universities and colleges given the discretion to implement, let's say, a flexible learning type of approach, may face-to-face and online, under GCQ?
Yung GCQ, wala pa. Ang in-approve lang ng IATF is under MGCQ.
Oh, MGCQ. Okay.
Yes, sa GCQ, wala pang approval. So, no face-to-face, no possibility of face-to-face until GCQ. Yung MGCQ, there is a policy already, but we are crafting the guidelines for that.
Ang MGCQ, do you allow face-to-face? Ang MGCQ? MGCQ.
There is a policy adopted by the IATF, but the guidelines on how that policy will be done is still being crafted, and we want to see the prototype on the ground, if it is feasible, and if it will pass health standards. So that is our plan in the next 2 months, probably, to see how it will look like. We will bring our health experts, we will bring our local governments. Kasi, Senator, may mga problema in our discussion with local governments. For example, if there is an infection and we close the university, who is accountable for bringing them to the proper health facility? Where will they be quarantined, for example? And you have to work with local governments. There must be a system for the local governments to work with the universities. So if there is an infection, the health of the infected person is taken care for. Iba-iba yung policy ng local governments sa ngayon. So that is an area that we have to really look at and make sure that accountability mechanism is in place. Who pays for the testing? Where will they stay for the quarantine? Will we require the health universities to have isolation rooms in the meantime while a student, a faculty or employee, is sick? These are things that we still have to go into detail and consult with the local governments and the university. So, hindi self-executing yung policy adopted by the IATF because it says there, in compliance with CHED requirements or CHED guidelines, and the guidelines are still being formalized now.
Pero Chairman, meron na tayong mga areas na under MGCQ and GCQ. May mga areas tayo na nasa GCQ ngayon. No? So,
yes.
Ano ang sinusundan nilang guidelines? In the
wala pang guidelines. So they cannot have face-to-face until the guidelines.
So the rule is no face-to-face?
Yes. Basically, the rule is no face-to-face now.
Okay.
The projection is the earliest we will be able to do it will be the second semester or in January.
Okay.
But I must admit that there are certain areas where the relationship between the local government and the universities is very strong, where they have helped each other, for example, in facilitating the entrance examination of students in state universities na wala talagang internet. Kasi yung online exams, may mga campuses na walang internet, so nagtutulungan yung local governments at saka yung university para pwedeng i-bus in yung students in batches so they can take the exam. May mga ganyang arrangement na ginagawa, but this is not regular face-to-face classes. These are activities that facilitate the opening of classes, so they do not qualify under the prohibition of face-to-face classes.
My last question, Chairman, is if that is the case, no, under GCQ and under a community quarantine, no, which covers GCQ and ECQ, you're not, or the commission is not allowing face-to-face. How many universities now are capable of online learning or flexible learning? Because I know for a fact that transitioning to that online learning is quite expensive, no? Here in Valenzuela, yung pamantasan namin, which, by the way, magdadigress ako. Thank you ho pala, na-accredit na kami, Chairman, 2 days ago. Full accreditation na after 3 years. No, thank you very much. Full accreditation na ho kami dito sa pamantasan namin. But I know for a fact that we subscribed and bought an application that can deliver full online learning. It's not cheap, it's quite expensive, no, and it's subscription based. How many universities and colleges, no, private and public, kasi split naman ng population yan 50-50, no? How many of them have subscribed or have transitioned into online learning?
Yeah, majority of universities are using blended option in the flexible mode. This is a combination of online and offline. And most of the online is asynchronous because of the weak connectivity or because of other issues. So yung offline nila, they are delivering written learning packets and give it to the students to go at home, and then they connect with their faculty members or they submit the requirements, etc. There are very few universities that are doing full online. These are the top universities that have been doing online before COVID. So this includes Mapua, Ateneo, De La Salle Binil, De La Salle, STI in some of the courses, etc. Majority are in the second option, which is the combination of online and offline. And many of them, most of them, are using free software. They are creating a learning management system using free software. And as they improve later on, if they have the funding, they can migrate to proprietary software at the appropriate time when their financial situation will allow it. Mahirap din kasi kahit may funding yung ibang SOC, mahirap mag-proprietary software kagad kasi may procurement process. At baka there's not enough time to open the classes. So most of them are using free software to do it. In fact, Silliman University, through a grant of CHED, has developed a learning management system that does not need internet connection. And we are giving this for free to the campuses and universities that have weak to no connectivity. So meron silang learning management system. Ang dala-dala ng estudyante at faculty, naka-install yung kanilang materials sa kanilang flash disk or flash drive. Tapos kung meron silang connection, doon lang nila ipapasok para makita nila. So meron ding ganong option na. So a learning management system does not need to be internet-based. There's already an LMS that does not require learning management system. The weak area, I'd like to tell our senators, the weak area is the smaller private universities. These are universities with less than 1,000 student enrollment. They comprise more than 1,000 of the total universities that we have. They are the ones that we need to help. So I have taken the position in both the House and the Senate that if government gives funds for connectivity, it should not target only the public universities. It should also help the private universities, the small ones. We have to find a way of helping them with connectivity, helping them develop their learning management system, because it's the smaller private universities that have limited financial capacity and don't have, even if they do free software, for example, they might not have the hardware and the IT people to run a free software. And wala din naman silang pondo to buy proprietary. So they're stuck in between. They're the ones that government needs to help. In the 3 billion that we give, kung pwede, maghanap tayo ng paraan na matulungan yung smaller private universities. Kasi ang marami sa kanila talagang tuition dependent. If the enrollment goes down, they have to lay off people or they have to close for the year. So hindi nila kaya mag-transition as fast as the others. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Chairman, just to...
if I may, Chairman Popoy,
go ahead.
please give us your recommendation, no, doon sa 3 billion, and at the same time we wanted to find out ano yung ito yung binabanggit po niyo, yung mga maliliit na universities that need help. Thank you.
Chairman,
Please proceed, Senator Gatchalian.
Yeah, lastly lang, Chairman, no, kasi I was going to expound also on that 1,000 small and medium universities. Chairman, kasali sila doon sa sinasabi niyong blended learning, in which they have asynchronous mode and also offline mode. And actually, I was going to expound on that because talagang sila yung hirap, no? Because wala silang technical expertise and also the capital to move. And I found out that itong online system napakamahal, no? It's not cheap, no? And those small universities might have a very difficult time to acquire that. And looking at the student population, 50-50 kasi ang private and ang public eh. So malaking chunk ng college population natin nasa private. So ang fear ko lang, if we don't help the small and medium universities, private universities, 50%, no, more than 50% of our population in our universities will be affected. No? So I just want to bring that out, and I know the chairman of the higher education is on top of this. In fact, yan ang passion niya. So I just want to bring that out, that in our tertiary education, kalahati po ng population natin nasa pribadong eskwelahan. So if we don't look at them, we will have some problem in delivering education to half of our college population.
Actually, Mr. Chair, the data is we have more students in private universities than public universities. The split is about 55 to 45%. And one of the things that we are doing very aggressively through the Bayanihan training program of CHED is yung training for teachers. We're targeting the teachers of the smaller private universities because there are 6 top universities that have approached CHED and they say we will give free training, you don't have to pay us. And these are very good universities like De La Salle College of St. Benil, the FEU, Philippine Normal University. So yung training program nila, ang target lang yung faculty of smaller universities. So we did an inventory and we found out that if you total the students of the more than 1,000 small private universities, aabot yan sa pinakamaliit 300,000 students. So it's a big population that is going to be affected if the smaller private universities are not able to do good flexible learning. Kasi if you use proprietary software for your LMS, libre nga, pero kailangan mo ng mainframe, kailangan mo ng hardware, at saka kailangan mo ng IT people to run it. So may cost pa rin. Kung magsusubscribe ka naman sa Canvas at sa Blackboard, masyadong mahal para sa small private universities ito. So that is the situation that we have to address. And I hope in the 3 billion we can put money for connectivity of the smaller private universities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Popoy, and please again to remind you that we will be looking forward to your recommendation because we're about to start our bicameral conference and 2 of our representatives are here, Senator Ivy Marcos and Senator Pia Cayetano, and we have been looking forward to this particular item so that we can help our SUCs. And also,
Mr. Chair,
it's important to note, yes.
Mr. Chair, we submitted last night already the breakdown of the 3 billion, and the executive director of CHED and our head of finance who went there. Ang problema kasi yung DICT, ang mandate niya is for public or for government facilities ang bibigyan ng connection. Pwedeng gawan natin ng way by which connectivity of smaller private universities can also be targeted. Kasi yung the DICT is working basically with SOOCs and loops. We have to find a way to help the smaller private universities. But we have submitted the breakdown already last night.
Yes, Chairman Popoy. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have it yet. We don't have it yet in the office. I don't know. Did you submit it to the committee, to the COMSEC?
I think to the people from the House of Rep, because they were the ones who asked for it. So we have submitted it. I think I'm not sure who they submitted to the Senate, but we can resubmit it now, Mr. Chair, if you would want.
Please, so that we can forward it to our representatives in the bicameral conference. And again, thank you. No, and again, it's important to note yung binanggit kanina ng ating PACU president, no, yung plead nila for help for internet connectivity, and at the same time, Chairman Popo, yung subsidy for students, yung TES, I think it's very important for them na hindi maunsame, hindi rin ma-stop. At this juncture,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Marcos, you're recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to send my wholehearted support to Chairman Popoy as well as Senator Sherwin. So regarding the very vulnerable and high risk at this point, small private universities, napakaraming lang problem, hindi lang yung IT. Ang totoo, diminishing yung enrollment. Pagkat sa probinsya, ang karamihan na nag-enroll dyan, anak ng OFW. Sa dinami-dami na repatriate nating OFW, may mga small universities tayo, yung mga IT and other colleges na talagang nangangalahati at mas malubha pa yung kanilang enrollment. Kaya ako, I have no prejudice, unlike some in government, about lending support, whether they be in student vouchers or in outright IT subsidies for these smaller colleges. We need them, and they're really folding as it is because of the OFW exodus. Thank you po.
Senator Aimee, if our distinguished colleague from the Senate would like to comment or ask questions, feel free to do so. Actually, this is my second unit now. I'm still having problems with my connection. Kanina nasa Globe ako, ngayon nasa PLDT na ako, and I'm still having a hard time connecting and getting a good reception or signal. At this juncture, can we just give the floor to the Department of Labor and Employment? We have here with us ASEC Nikki Tutay. A while ago, we made mention about the importance of open distance learning, and last Congress, we passed the Philippine Qualifications Framework. I think Senator Tol, Senator Pia, even Senator Sherwin, who made a very important statement a while ago. He's also, by the way, Vice Chair of this Committee on Higher Technical and Vocational Education Committee. We are also looking forward to the report and update on the PQF, what do you call that, council, no? Headed by DepEd and member ang CHED, ang TESDA, ang DOLE. Perhaps we could get an update as DDG Rose Urdaneta made mention a while ago about the importance of harmonizing and to ensure that will be able to institutionalize these different modes or modalities na pinapatupad ho natin. But anyway, let's give the floor lang to
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
just
Chairman Popoy.
Yeah, I just like to correct myself. I just got the correct data. The enrollment for the smaller private universities with student population of 1,000 or less is actually 525,000 students, not 300,000 as I said earlier. Just for the record, I might be quoted with the wrong data. Yeah, it's actually more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Popoy. We give the floor now to ASEC Nikki Tutay. Perhaps we could hear her with regard to emerging jobs and with regard to what we are talking about. Thank you. ASEC Nikki, you have the floor.
Mga 1.2 minutes grant naman yun, ano? So, mabilis lang yan. May applications.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Can I be heard po?
Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. First of all po, belated happy birthday, sir. At saka, ano po, sa lahat po ng members po of the committee and all the resource person, magandang hapon po sa ngalan po ng aming kalihim Bebot Bello. Gusto po namin na ipahayag ang aming pong suporta dito po sa initiative po na ito. And there are about 4 or 6 points that I'd like to make. Una po, yung proposed bill po is very timely because of the health and safety of the learners and education providers under the new normal. Secondly, it is very responsive to the call of the fourth industrial revolution, characterized by digitalization and IT-enabled systems. Pangatlo po, from the Philippine Qualifications Framework perspective, it serves as an avenue for learners to learn or to earn degrees and competencies, including credits, at any stage of education and training processes, and therefore, it facilitates the ladderized approach and credit transfer. Pang-apat, we'd like to state that the bill would enhance the information and technology application competencies of the supply side. Note that this is one of the important competencies the demand side requires in the labor market. There are just two proposals that we'd like to put forward, Mr. Chair, to support the bill. We need to have a strengthened infrastructure and make it available as well, especially for those who don't have the means in life, as was pointed out by Senator Bongo earlier. And secondly, Mr. Chair, there's a need for capacity building for our faculty. So, yun lamang po ang gustong ipahayag at the moment ng Department of Labor and Employment, and we look forward po sa passage po ng bill na ito. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
You ASEC Nikki, at present lang, just one quick question. How do you monitor right now the compliance of higher education institutions to the provision under CHED Advisory Number 7, which requires HEIs to facilitate and or ensure that transportation services and personal protective equipment are provided to its skeleton workforce? I ask this question because I'm very passionate about it. I'm sure you know my passion about this, because we wanted to make sure that we have a concrete plan to issue this guidelines, or perhaps I don't know kung pwedeng mag-issue o may na-issue na joint guidelines on the protocols that must be in place to maintain the safety and health of our workers and students inside the school premises.
Opo, meron naman po tayong in place na labor advisory, Mr. Chair, when it comes to observance of the health protocols under the IATF guidelines. There's a monitoring monitoring that we conduct, not just on the educational institution, but all types of establishments, Mr. Chair. Kaya lang po, meron po kaming nare-receive na reports na yun pong mga transport services po or even po yung lodging facilities ng ilang education institutions ay charge po nila sa kanilang mga empleyado din at binabawas po ito sa sweldo. So ito po siguro ang kailangang ma-address po dahil nagrereklamo po yung ating mga teachers po regarding this practice, Your Honor.
Asek Nikki, perhaps there's a need to have a joint guidelines between DOLE and CHED if that's okay with our Chairman De Vera, kasi para specific yung ano natin pang schools talaga.
Opo. We're open to that, Mr. Chair, and we will partner po with Commissioner Popoy, Chair Popoy.
Sige, please, nandiyan naman si Chair Popoy. I think okay naman sa kanila, Chair Popoy.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will instruct our Executive Director to call USEC Tutay immediately within the day.
Thank you very much. We give the floor now to Miss Caroline Enriquez, who's raising her hand kanina. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Yes, I was just going to... Thank you, Chair. I was just going to relate that we're doing a running survey among Cocopeya schools. Cocopeya is the organization of 5 associations of private schools. So what we have right now, out of 610 respondents, 610 schools, in the basic education, they're expecting something like 20% of their students are not coming back. In the higher education, it goes anywhere from 60 to 10%. 10 to 60% decrease in enrollment. So as we move along, we will have the final details. How many schools were affected? How many of our students did not return? And we shall furnish the Senate a copy of these findings because it's important. It also has some records on how many teachers will probably be retrenched. So we'll give you updates on that because as we move along, it's really very difficult to have the students enrolled in private schools right now because many of our students are coming from OFW families and families whose parents lost their jobs because of the COVID. Thank you, Senator.
President Enriquez, just one question, just to be clarified. To date po, how many private colleges and universities yung nagpadama or nagsabi that na magko-close sila or cessation of operations due to the pandemic? May data po ba tayo na?
Sir, we don't have the data as far as ilan yung magsasara because we're still doing our enrollments. My fear here is maybe this year nilang tawirin eh. But then later on, if it continues, then there's a big chance that they might be closing by next year. What we see right now, yes, what we see right now, sir, would be a lot of schools that have really a decrease in enrollment. And very scary because we're looking at an average of 60% decrease in our enrollment.
50%, is that correct? 50?
40 to 60, sir.
40 to 60%. Wow.
Yes, sir.
And ma'am, do we have any data or at least an estimate of how many private HEIs have plans on retrenchment or mass retrenchment of workers? Kasi may mga teaching and non-teaching personnel po na sumusulat sa atin, meron na silang mga anxieties, na baka maaari or maaari na ma-lay off po sila ng mga private universities and colleges na ito.
Absolute count yet because we're still conducting our data. And some of the schools are still doing their enrollments. So a lot of our schools pushed down the start of classes. Initially, dapat first week of August nag-start na sila, but because it's coming in really very slow. In fact, we were talking about it this morning. We have converted some of our schools into semi-call centers because of poor connectivity. Yung enrollment that should be online, mahirap habulin. So we're doing our SMS, we're doing our emails, we're doing all of those just to get the students on board. But as soon as we get it, we hope to finish the survey by third week of August. We'll give you a copy of the scenario in private education. What the schools are doing right now, if let's say they're not able to catch or to reach the 50%, which is something like their cutoff, whether they will retrench or not retrench, some are putting their teachers on floating status just to ride out. So hopefully by January, sana dumami yung enrollment. Because people are now engaged and they see the value of continuing their education, whether it's just online or other flexible modes. Because really, what we also need to address is the fear of parents on whether the experience on online education will be the same as a face-to-face. So it's really hard to get them on board with regards to concept and that mindset. But we hope if we deliver it correctly, what's due to the maganda experience, then we might get more students on board.
Asek Nikki, can you mute your computer, please? Thank you.
Chairman, Senator Joel.
Yes, President Arteaga, just a minute. Thank you very much, President Enriquez. We look forward to that copy of your survey, of your report. Thank you very much, and we want you to know, nandito ho kami yung Senado for Paco, if there's anything we can do. No, we give the floor now to President Arcega, who's raising his hand. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Senator. That's why the ALCO and ALCO-COA have been very supportive of the proposition of the private school, no, and COCOPEA, then also represented by Attorney Estrada. We're happy to hear from Senator Amy Marcos on the possibility of providing a voucher, no, just like what we're doing in the senior high school, to private education. While we belong to the public sector, we know how it feels, no? Those who are in the private sector, and we don't want to see more schools, private schools closing, because the reason why we're doing well in the education sector was because we've been using private schools as usage, as our benchmark, in delivering quality education. So I just hope through your leadership, Senator Villanueva and Senator Amy Marcos and the rest of the members of the higher and technical education, that you continue that you'll be able to support, by providing not only voucher like K-12, but some sort of subsidy to the private university. While there is a law, I don't know what law is prohibiting us using resources for private corporations. No, I hope private schools, while a private corporation may be exempted from these limitations, because the mandate of private schools are similar to that of public and SUC, which is about the promotion of quality education, road to eliminating poverty, and establishing equilibrium. So the ALCO on record for many times has been very supportive of the position of COCOPEA, of PACO, and of the entire private institutions, asking the government to seriously provide subsidy, so that they can play well in the field of this competition that we have right now. At this point also, Senator Villanueva, I would like to maximize the presence of our good friend Asek Nikki from Dole, that while in their attempt to define policies during pandemic, hope they will include our students who are on actual OJT. But other than that, Senator Villanueva, we would like to call Dole, to our good friend Asek Tutay, the possibility of assisting also educational institutions, no, to reinvent, to recreate OJT program. As you all know, aside from laboratory delivery of instructions, no, it's part of the curriculum is of course OJT. And OJT program, field study, and laboratories are provisions in the curriculum that it's impossible for you to deliver online, no? And yet you still have to deliver OJT, laboratory and field study, no? Because it's part of the curriculum. We would appreciate from DOLE on how they can facilitate from the industry, no, accepting OJT that has no residential, where the kids doesn't have to report personally or residential in the company. So
Yes,
aside
President Arcega, we wanted you to know that there's a bill pending here in the Senate that will tackle this enterprise-based program, no? And we'll definitely monitor this particular measure.
though right now there are some companies, Mr. Chair, from the IT sector that are willing to accept OJT via online, but there are hundreds of courses, no, that cannot be delivered online, that has to be delivered face to face. So once again, thank you, Mr. Chair, and we're
Thank you.
this issue to the Department of Labor and Employment. Thank you.
Thank you, President Arcega. With your indulgence, can you mute your computer, please? We give the floor now to Senator Tolentino. I think he wanted to raise something. Yes, Senator Tolentino, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, makikinig lang ako. Nakikinig lang ako muna. Hindi ko laptop tong ginagamit ko eh. Kaya hindi ko ma-operate.
Okay, thank you, Senator Tolentino. Actually, believe it or not, this is my second iPad, second unit. I was connected to Globe kanina. Now I'm in with PLDT, and I'm still having a hard time. At this juncture, let's give the floor now, and we wanted to listen from the convener of Students' Rights and Welfare Coalition, Troy Tariela. Are you there?
Magandang hapon po. Naririnig po ba ako?
Yes. Yes, you have the floor, sir. Please, Sir Julian.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, the honorable senators, and to all the resource persons and staff supporting national studentry. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Committee on Higher, Technical, and Vocational Education for inviting the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines and Students' Rights and Welfare Philippines to this consultation. On behalf of all the students in the Philippines, I suppose we are thankful and welcome these bills and resolutions to aid students and refine the practice of online education. However, I would also like to manifest that there still remain several concerns for the national studentry. The first among which are on transparent monitoring and evaluation mechanisms for academic requirements and materials, and consequently the standardization of these requirements and materials together with protocols and procedures that protect students' rights. Perhaps this also goes to show na in the context of online classes, students are increasingly vulnerable to students' rights abuses, and this is why I suppose now more than ever, important po na magkaroon ng standardization on the protocols and procedures that protect students' rights, and ultimately perhaps calling for a movement to revive the larger passage of a students' rights and welfare bill itself. Right now, we have seen that universities, although they have a capacity to shift to online learning, learning and interactions are conducted using online platforms that not all students have access to. Students saw an increase in academic requirements despite the limitations in procuring materials needed to fulfill the requirements. And students have also experienced different and varying internet speeds and different varying workloads. And this is perhaps increasingly problematic on the side of a student because I suppose similar to what Senator Marcos said earlier, some courses or some universities simply become diploma mills, whereas other universities naman have increasingly high requirements for students, which renders the playing field very unfair. All in all, these contexts limit educational productivity and hinder students to fulfill not only the requirements but to maximize their own educational attainment. The second concern that we'd like to bring up is on tuition and fees. Although while it is laudable that Senate Bill number 1538 places a moratorium on student loans, which is incredibly helpful for students who are financially affected during these trying times, the reality is universities still lack transparency in terms of providing ample computations. I suppose a case that I would like to share with you, my dear senators, is the case of that of Mapua University, where the university administration failed to present the computation as to how rebates were computed despite the request for complete transparency. And this happens to a myriad of educational institutions across the Philippines. Some universities have also pushed on with their semester or term, where students report that these universities still charge the student body with the exact same cost of tuition fees, despite all learning interactions happening through online platforms. So perhaps there should be some sort of intervention from the Commission on Higher Education and perhaps also the Department of Education in addressing transparency concerns when it comes to how educational institutions have computed their tuition fees and whether or not they will actually be giving rebates for the semester that was previously cut short due to the advent of the COVID-19 crisis. The third concern that we'd like to manifest is the still apparent lack of accessibility to online learning. We acknowledge that while academic requirements stay the same for all students, we would like to reiterate that not everyone has the same access to a fast and reliable internet connection. There are apparent reports that students go to ridiculous extents where they even climb mountains just to find reliable internet connections to submit the requirements. That is why it is increasingly important to continue boosting subsidization for both private and public educational institutions that are financially struggling. With all of that, I would like to close my manifestation on our concerns. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tariela. No, just one quick question with regard to this particular topic. How has the shift to blended learning affected the mental health of our students? Perhaps you can give us a bird's eye view of how this is being in the implementation of blended learning, how does it affect our students' mental health?
All right. So I suppose the experience of online classes varies across different educational institutions. And all the while, there are universities and colleges similar to Ateneo and De La Salle that are able to provide institutions that help students cope with their mental health issues or mental health concerns during this online learning context. The reality is not a lot of educational institutions have that capacity, aren't afforded that luxury. And we have to understand that online learning poses very individual contexts. There are some students who have to grapple with a harsh reality that they have abusive households, for example. Some students have to grapple with the harsh reality na patuloy-tuloy yung workload nila and they don't have internet for days. Malalaman nila bigla na may requirements sila on the last day of submission. And this is increasingly detrimental nga to mental health. I suppose online classes don't have a single lived experience, but it is increasingly important for, I suppose, not only the educational institutions, but CHED and DepEd themselves, together with TESDA, to provide alternative avenues for these students to seek mental health treatment.
Thank you very much. I will take note of that, and perhaps that's really very important. Can we hear now from the Council of okay, Senator Amy, before we hear the convener from colleges and universities of the Philippines, the Council of Teachers, we'll hear from Senator Amy Marcos. Yes, Senator Marcos, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you very much. Just two brief manifestations in as much as Senator Lapid's bill on tuition freeze has already been mentioned by Mr. Tariela of STRAW and the students groups. Una, na may resolution ako para imbestigahan yung ating tuition fees na hindi maintindihan ng karamihan ng magulang at mga yung miscellaneous, samantalang wala naman pupunta sa lab, wala naman pupunta at gamit ng internet sa eskwela, wala nang face-to-face, may classroom. Kaya sana maimbestigahan itong tuition fees na nabanggit na rin ng ating mga student representatives. It's Senate Resolution 480. Andito si Madjo, kaya kaya ma-schedule yan. The other thing that I wanted to mention, in as much as inequities in distribution of government aid was mentioned also by Mr. Tariela, was that I'm very concerned while we support the Lapid bill and the forbearance required in the collection of tuition fees, may I simply say that the priority must be given to students whose family income levels really fall below the poverty threshold. Kasi minsan shutdown ng pamimigay, nakita naman natin ang kaguluhan ng SAP, malamang magandang gamitin yung FIES data na kinokollect ng PSA at DSWD, yung Family Income and Expenditure Survey, para makatarungan naman ang pagbibigay at pamamahagi nitong mga tuition and other assistance na iniisip natin. Yun lang po. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Senator Marcos, before we give the floor to our majority floor leader or Senator Tolentino, perhaps we could ask our representative from CHED if Chairman Popoy can give us an idea how many universities and colleges will implement tuition fee increase this incoming academic year 2020-2021. Chair Popoy. He's logged in, but we can't see any video. But anyway, we'll get back to Chair Popoy. If there's anything you'd like to add or say, comment, Majority Leader, Senator Tolentino. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you to my distinguished chairman of the Committee on Labor and Committee on Higher Education. On the onset, I just want to say that I fully support your endeavors today to find out a way to be able to make our people, to give more efficient service to online education, online schooling, lalo na ngayon during this time of pandemic. We are very, very, it's new normal. So we're in a very, very, I'd say, difficult time when it comes to educating our students online. Kami lalo na sa Bukidnon, dear Chairman, I mean Cagayan de Oro, boundary Bukidnon, this is where I stay. So I always get the feedback from our colleagues there, our fellow government workers, the difficulty on how they will implement the DepEd school program starting this August 22. Lalo na, we have two SUCs, which is Bukidnon State University and Central Mindanao University. So I believe, and I'm sure Chairman De Vera will brief us on this, that there will be no online, or rather there will be no face-to-face classes at this point in time. Since we still also have the virus, although in a small amount or small scale in Northern Mindanao, but we have the virus here as well. Therefore, the difficulty of going online in a situation, Mr. Chairman, na walang internet. Alam mo, sa amin sa Bukidnon, twilight zone kami. When I leave Cagayan de Oro, wala pa kami, hindi pa kami nasa boundary ng Bukidnon. Sa pa lang, highland ng Cagayan de Oro going up to Bukidnon, wala na kaming signal, walang data. And even in my house in Maramag, San Miguel, Maramag, Bukidnon, I have to go under a santol tree. Literally, I am not kidding you, Chairman. There is a one santol tree in our farm that I have to go to only get my signal and data there. So, pag hindi nga ako sumasagot sa inyo pag nasa probinsya ako, hindi dahil sinasnab ko po kayo. Ibig sabihin, wala talaga akong kakuting na signal. So, that is the difficulty, and I think the challenge is much less in NCR and Greater Manila area, which is the Calabarzon and the Region 3, no, the areas of Bulacan and your province, Mr. Chairman, and the neighboring provinces. But in Visayas and Mindanao, it is a challenge. From Siquijor to even parts of Panay in the area of Tita Ganda in Antique. Talagang these are the challenges that we have to overcome, no, and face for online education for the higher education system, which is the universities and colleges. Although I'm a product of distance learning, Chairman. I am a graduate of UPOU, University of the Philippines Open University, and the campus is in Los Baños near UPLB, and I am a graduate of Masters in Environment and Natural Resources Management. So it works. It can be done. It can be done. It's a bit more challenging because mas gusto ko talaga face-to-face. It's nice to interact with the teachers, but because I was a senator, it gave me an opportunity to be able to do my work at the same time, continue my education and yung postgraduate education. It works. Yun nga lang, it's a challenge. So I'm here to support you, Chairman, your measures that you're going to pass para lalong palakasin itong online education. Siguro ang challenge yan nasa DICT, di ba po? Kasi the problem of internet is really with the DICT and the infrastructure, which you call the internet infrastructure. I'm also here to support your student loan payment moratorium and other measures that will be able to help our students cope up, lalo-lalo na sa pandemyang ito. I think people want to hear good news. Every time we read the news or watch the news on TV, it seems to be bad news after bad news, one after the other. So I think we're looking forward for you to be able to come up with your committee report, Chairman, and in the floor, I promise you we will support, together with Senator Wing Gatchalian. Senator Wing Gatchalian has several scholars. Nice, very pretty scholars, Mr. Chairman. I think they're only women scholars that he has. Kidding aside, Mr. Chairman, I'm here to support. And I thank, of course, our colleagues for joining this very interesting conversation and very interesting hearing. Maraming salamat po, Chair.
Majority Floor Leader for that very inspiring statement. And especially for clarifying that you are not ghosting, Majority Leader. You're really having a hard time with your internet connectivity. In fact, I have to tell you that this is my second unit now. I was logged into Globe in the beginning of this hearing. Now I'm with PLDT. I'm still having a hard time. So it's not really just in Bukidnon or Cagayan de Oro or in Ilocos. Kanina si Senator Amy is also lagging. That's why it's really hard, no, to kanina pinag-uusapan natin online learning, itong online hearing nga nahihirapan tayo, so it's a big challenge for all of us. Anyway, Chairman Popoy is with us. Chairman Popoy, we were talking a while ago about the tuition fee increase. May we know if there are updates that we can hear from CHED, how many universities or colleges will implement tuition fee increase in this coming academic school year 2020 to 2021?
Before I go to the tuition increase, Mr. Chair, if you will allow, let me just reiterate that the policy of the Commission is not online learning. It is flexible learning. And flexible learning has three modes. One is to do full online. The second one is to combine online and offline. And the third one is to have more face-to-face and a little bit of offline. I think the students, when they comment, they attack the CHED for supporting an online policy. The policy of the Commission is to allow the universities to be flexible. And majority of them are not doing full online. The only ones doing full online are the top universities that have already full capability to do it, like De La Salle Binil, UP Open U, Mapua, and the others. But the biggest number of universities are doing a combination of online and offline. And the online that they are using is also not synchronous, meaning it is not holding Zoom sessions all the time. Many of the online options is asynchronous, meaning you assign materials that are available online to be done by students at their own pace, at their own time, and to connect with the teacher electronically on an online option for consultation, for discussion, and possible classes. So the offline options is to develop learning packets, written materials, printed materials that can be given to students to do at home and to be submitted for assessment at regular schedules for the semester. So yun ho yung range. So mahirap po kasi pag sinabing online ang policy ng CHED, kasi nga madaming areas na mahina ang connectivity, and we recognize that the connectivity is an issue that cannot be solved overnight. I would also like to inform Senator Subiri na meron ng offline na learning management system dinevelop ng Silliman University. You don't need internet connection to have a learning management system. The students and the teachers can be connected only when they go to a computer para makakonect, makasubmit ng requirements without physically going to the classroom. Having said that, Mr. Chair, in the first quarter of 2020, that is usually the time when private universities apply for tuition because they used to open classes in June. The Commission received close to 400 applications for tuition increase. But that was before COVID. So last May, we sent back all the applications for tuition increase to the universities and told them, are you still going to apply? And if you're going to apply for increase, you have to do new consultation with the students and the faculty because flexible learning na yung i-apply the system. And out of the close to 400, and we gave them a deadline to apply last July 1. So as of now, out of the close to 400 applications, there are only 89 applications that were submitted in the different regional offices of CHED. So the 89 represents about 5% of all private universities and colleges. So konti lang ho talaga yung nag-apply kasi the private universities also know that students are hard up, there are loss of jobs, etc. So the tuition and miscellaneous fee increases are still being evaluated by our regional offices now. The evaluation and decision is actually done in the region. So I am not in a position to tell the Commission how many has been, the Senate, how many has been approved by now. But as soon as the data is available, I will submit it, Mr. Chair. Ang problema ngayon is not the application for tuition. It is the existing tuition and miscellaneous fees being collected. Kasi hindi naintindihan ng mga magulang at mga estudyante ano yung basis nung nagbabayad pa sila kahit na flexible na ang learning. So we have told the universities to discuss this with the students kasi iba-iba talaga ang fee structure across universities. It is difficult, if not impossible, for the Commission to unilaterally, tell universities how to do it because iba-iba yung fee structure nila . What we have done in the university, in the Commission, is we have identified the costs associated with shifting to flexible learning. Ano ba yung cost na may incur ng mga universities? And we discussed this in the National Directorate meeting yesterday because we already have the data and the reports from all our regional offices. and we will send this to the private universities at the latest next week when the Commission and Bank meets. Ang hiningi ng private universities is to be allowed to reclassify yung existing miscellaneous fees nila and to use that money for the new cost associated with flexible learning. That is what they have requested the Commission. Kaya ang ginawa ng Commission, we enumerated the cost associated with flexible learning, and we will now tell the private universities, in your discussions with the students and the faculty, explain to them and inform them how the existing miscellaneous fees that are going to be collected will be used not for the original purpose, but for adjustment to flexible learning. So that is the action that the Commission has decided yesterday and will be submitted to the private universities next week. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Popoy, si Senator Amy is raising
Mr.
her
Chair.
hand. And then Senator Pia. Senator Amy, 89 na lang daw yung nag-apply. You have the floor, Senator Amy.
Yes, thank you very much. As I stated in Senate Resolution that I filed, number 480, ang inireklamo, hindi lamang yung tuition, kasi tulad nga ng sinabi ni Popoy, bumagsak na sa 89 applications na lamang. Subalit ang hindi talaga maintindihan ng magulang at mga anak, kung bakit may laboratory fees, may library fees, may additional medical and dental fees, may paggamit ng internet at saka yung paggamit rin ng computer, tapos may energy consumption na miscellaneous fee pa. Samantalang under 21 years old nga naman yung karamihan ng estudyante, bawal lumabas. Ngayon na COVID nga at bumalik pa tayo sa MECQ, bakit magbabayad pa ng katakot-takot? I think that perhaps Chair Popoy is right in saying that in fact there needs to be further explanation of these miscellaneous fees, which somehow evade the requirement that they should first be applied at CHED in the event of an increase. At ipaliwanag na maigi na may gastos rin yung paglilipat sa flexible learning. Pagkat namimili nga ng online materials, itataas rin yung internet requirement at ganun din yung aircon at iba pang power consumption. Yun ang problema doon. Hindi talaga maintindihan kung bakit may mga fees for laboratory, library, medical, dental, hindi nga makapunta sa eskwelahan yung mga bata. So yun yata ang kinakailangan ipaliwanag ng maigi ng mga eskwelahan at siguro hindi naman nila isasama ng load sa akin na talagang may mga reklamo na na-publicize na tungkol sa University of the East, UST, pati De La Salle. Yun ang natanggap natin sa opisina at sa iba't iba pang mga sulat ng tao. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Amy. Just put on record that your bill has not been referred to this committee, but once it's referred, we will tackle it right away. And again, thank you. Before we hear the representative from the faculty sector, we'd like to hear from Senator Pia Cayetano, one of the champions of education in the Senate. Ate Pia, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of comments and reactions to statements made by various resource persons over the past 2 hours. But let me start with support also for the resolution filed by Senator Amy. But I'd also like to put some perspective there because I think it's only fair, like Chair Popoy said, that his constant reminders to the universities and colleges to explain well to the parents because there are recurring costs that regardless kung may pasok o hindi, babayaran pa rin, di ba? Now, is it fair to pass it on to the students? Well, those are things that have to be discussed. So for example, kaya nyo nga pinasok yung anak nyo doon dahil maganda ang laboratory noon, kompleto ang gamit. Binayaran yun. Gumastos ng kung anumang halaga to invest in those kind of equipment. And they have to still be paying that. Siguro na-amortize nilang ang gastos noon. But these are things that have to be explained so that people understand that there are costs that recur and it needs to be paid. Yun lang naman ang sa akin, similar to what Chair Popoy said, na mapaliwanag ng maayos. And kung hindi naman pwede, kung kaya namang hindi singilin, then wag mo nang singilin. But I understand, no? These are costs that have to be paid. Let me now comment on the digital connectivity. I also support the concern that was raised about connectivity for the private sector. Let's see what we can do about that immediately, because we recognize that they are integral partners in the delivery of higher education to our youth. So that really must be something that we work on. So I will work with the team, especially the chair, on trying to address this. And then, Mr. Chair, I'd also like to comment on the need to address the wellness and mental health of the students. His Honor specifically asked what is the effect of blended learning on the mental health of the students. I think it would be not very accurate if the response is simply because of the blended learning, no? Because I think any mental health reaction or condition that is being experienced by anyone, even whether they're students, adults, teachers, is not really a reaction just to the blended learning, but to the whole pandemic, to the entire experience. I don't think we have enough data to simply pinpoint that ang reaction nito is because of blended learning. Pero ito naman, at specifically because wala siyang connectivity. I think it's a whole, it's a whole reaction to everything we go to, and perhaps intensified by the lack of connectivity, di ba? We all experience that, that's for sure. Parang okay na yung araw mo tapos biglang wala ka na palang kausap, like Senator Dick the other day, no? Ang ganda-ganda nung kanyang sponsorship, tapos lahat tayo hindi na natin narinig kasi naputol na siya. So yun lang naman.
Twice nangyari.
Oo. Kaya tinitingnan kita ng maayos dahil baka nagsasalita ka, Chair, hindi ka na namin naririnig. So my whole point lang naman is to recognize that it is not just one thing that affects us. It's so many things, and almost as important as food and water and shelter. Di ba dati sabi ano ba yung mga basic needs? Food, shelter, water, clothing. And ngayon connectivity rin is one of those essentials. So it's very important. But on that note, no, given that we do not have the schools, no, do not have or have not been set up to really deliver this wellness and mental health support that is needed, no. So again, COVID and other crises present us with those opportunities to do something about it. Kung hindi pa nangyari to, hindi pa talaga tayo mag-all out on connectivity, hindi pa tayo mag-all out on mental wellness. So ang akin pong suggestion, since it will take time, it is not overnight na bigla tayong magigising connected na lahat, may we request CHED to consider either it's a highly recommending, or maybe we can I can draft a bill. I don't know. We don't need a law for it, but to come up with programs, whether they are pre-taped sessions by experts on wellness, peer groups that provide Q&As that are printed. Maraming ways din na i-deliver itong support na ito, itong awareness on mental health. Again, not through digital means. Para nakaka-reach out pa rin tayo dun sa mga estudyanteng nangangailangan at maraming nangangailangan. So may we also bring that to the attention of all the decision makers here, whether from the private sector and from the public sector, na mag-create kayo ng materials to address the concerns of the students and the parents on mental awareness, di ba? It doesn't have to be delivered one-on-one dahil hindi talaga tayo prepared for that. A lot of the universities don't have that. The next point I'd like to raise, Mr. Chair, is on the face-to-face learning, because it's been mentioned many times. I don't think there's a bill pending in this committee right now, but it has been mentioned a number of times. I actually have a view that is shared by a lot of professionals that we must continue to explore the possibility of minimal face-to-face on a staggered basis in a very scientifically determined way, which has been included in our comments to the President's report, to allow certain universities and colleges who on their own will present themselves as prepared, and the specific programs that would allow it to allow students to advance. So I'm talking about, Mr. Chair, in far-flung areas, and I have been there because of my personal passion to go hiking, biking, etc. I've been to areas na very isolated, and the chances of COVID there are very low. These are areas where we should explore it. Now, I am not calling for bumalik kayo sa school, 30 students in a classroom. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being creative and considering what kind of practicum, what kind of lessons can be taught in with physical distancing, with 3 students, with 5 students in a classroom. That can be done, and we cannot shut our mind to not exploring that. No, we continually have to explore these possibilities because it's being explored all over the world. So I'm not here to give a go signal na gawin nyo na yan. No, but I'm saying it is incumbent upon all decision makers to keep on exploring and considering those possibilities. Otherwise, mahuhuli po tayo. I'm not aware of any responsible university or college administration who would do something recklessly, di ba? Ang pinag-uusapan natin dito is to open your mind and consider what are those possibilities. For example, kung hindi pa tayo MGCQ sa NCR, there was already a go signal given to professional basketball para mag-training sila. So ang intindi ko, because my brother-in-law is a professional player, they will not be playing together, but they will be training in a whole basketball court, one on one end, one on another, and there's a coach. Kung pwedeng gawin ng basketball player yun, bakit hindi pwedeng gawin ng estudyante na responsable at ng teacher yun, di ba? Yun lang naman yung sa akin. So I'm just saying explore. Yun lang, Mr. Chair.
Senator Pia, before we hear our representative for the first time, faculty, do you want to make a quick comment, Chairman Popoy?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just 3 points.
Please proceed.
Yeah, I agree with Senator Cayetano that when we say flexible learning, it should not mean that there will be absolutely no residential now, soon, and in the future, because there are merits also to face-to-face interaction and learning. Because if it is true that online was superior to face-to-face all this time, then we should have seen this shift much earlier. Meron ding nawawala talaga sa face-to-face, tsaka may mga hindi ka magawa online, like medical programs, for example, engineering programs. There are limits to what you can do for laboratory, for internship. You cannot make all of this online. So what we are doing in the CHED is yung guidelines that we already basically finished with the guidelines, and I said earlier, we will now go on the ground and see how universities that are interested to do some face-to-face, how they will reconfigure physically their classrooms, their dormitories, etc., and learn from how other countries are doing it, ventilation, in and out, etc., so that we can slowly develop a prototype that other universities can use later on. So this is a continuing process that we are doing. No? There are actually some universities that have already sent a request to CHED. For example, De La Salle Binil has sent a proposal. Sabi nila, pwede ba kami mag-face-to-face? Ang gagawin namin, lahat ng mga estudyante na napapasok, merong mandatory testing. Pag nag-negative sila, nandoon sila sa aming hotel for 1 whole semester. And then we will hold classes only for them. So there are universities that are exploring options that will make it safer. And so we are studying that proposal of De La Salle Binil. Kasi yung unang ginawa nila, 20-degree programs lahat online. But they realize that there are programs that you cannot do fully online. So sabi nila, can we propose to the IATF, itetest namin sila, sigurado silang negative, their health is secured, we will let them stay in the hotel, and we will deliver portions of the program face-to-face. So then our top universities are doing their best. I think President Caroline Enriquez in their medical programs is exploring how you can use both online and offline for the clinical part, for the practicum part, etc. So we are learning. What we are happy about is that our top universities are learning and trying to see what can be done, and we bank on their leadership to guide the other less prepared universities on flexible learning to do it. So I agree. Our target some limited face-to-face will probably be the second semester of this school year. Of course, we're assuming that the health situation will improve, the guidelines and prototypes will be available, and then slowly we can see how much face-to-face will be allowed in our universities moving forward.
Okay, I think
Sinong nawala, Mr. Chair?
nawala yata
Siyang
si
nawala,
Chairman
hindi
Popoy.
tayo.
Mr. Chair, yung kwan lang, yung do sa
Okay.
yung sa nakamute ako eh. Please unmute me.
Okay, Chairman Popoy, please proceed.
I think the Senate has muted me so I cannot be heard. There, okay. Yun lang sa mental health, what the Commission has done is we have touched base with the association of yung psychologists, psychiatrists to explore how this can be done. This is a new arena that there are very few experts on this, and we are opening a funding possibility for the association of the psychiatrists, psychologists to work with the Commission and the universities to deal with mental health issues. Pero initial consultation pa lang ang nangyayari, wala pang actual programs that have been identified. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Popoy, we give the floor now. Kanina pa natin na gustong marinig ang Council of Teachers and Staff in Colleges and Universities in the Philippines. Isa sa mga lead convener po natin mula sa isa sa pinakamaganda, kung hindi man pinakamagandang universidad sa balat ng lupa, ang University of Santo Tomas. Convener Professor Rene Tadle. Sir, you are recognized. Thank you for being with us.
Oy, maraming salamat. Salamat Senator Joel and for the rest also of the senators. I actually prepared a PowerPoint presentation which I gave to the staff. Could that be presented?
Just proceed with your statement, Sir Rene.
Oo, kasi all right. Meron na ba? Wala. Right. Okay, ganito no. I think first salamat kasi for the first time binigyan ng opportunity ang mga teachers and non-academic personnel to speak about matters that are very, very important to them and also affect their terms and condition of employment. In any case, my discussion will be divided into two parts. Yung una regarding the online and then also later yung labor issue. I hope I can be heard. Ayan, okay.
We can hear you.
Next, yes, okay, salamat. Next slide, please.
Be brief, Sir Rene, no?
Yeah.
Kindly
Yes,
be brief lang.
sir.
Thank you.
I'll try my very, this will be quick, hopefully. These are some of the experience. So that's why there is a mental health related issues. Number one, many times ang experience ng faculty members would be this. Tatawagan sila sa telepono, may online sila, but at the same time, it becomes on call. They would even receive calls from parents, administrators at 10 o'clock in the evening. And so there's supposed to be policies on that. Pangalawa, Big Brother's presence in an online class. What does that mean? They just realize that sometimes when they present their lesson, yung mga may mga ibang audience dun sa kanilang estudyante na kasama, at kuminsan naririnig pa nila na nagko-coach yung parent o yung tutor kung anong dapat tanungin o anong dapat gawin ng teacher. Also, yung pagpo-post ng lecture online, kasi this is very good because we were instructed, teachers were instructed to post these lectures so that yung mga estudyante na hindi maaaring maka absent during the online class can later have access to the lecture. But ang problem dito sometimes is this is posted also in the internet. And so it is worrisome for faculty members. Tapos also yung number of preparations. Parang napakadami at there are times 4 subjects, multi-level. And also yung issue na kung minsan yung English teacher, yung math teacher magtuturo ng English. Okay, next slide. So because of that, may mga anxiety issues that would come into play. May I request another for the next slide? Okay, I think this is very, very important because this is the most recent study by Tomei and Nelson. Lumalabas dito ito po yung ano ba yung maximum number of enrollees on online class. This is a 2019 published article, and this was a study that is also across different disciplines. So ang sinasabi sa undergraduate, pag traditional 18, sa online 13. Well, yung sa hybrid 17. But my point is this, no? We are very, very far from this because at existing right now, based on the rules, ang ating ceiling sa number of students per class, let's say lecture class is around 50. But the ideal number is 13 for online, 18 for traditional. We are not saying that we should go to this, but this should be our direction. In any case, it's also important that, ang minention namin to rito because we want to prevent a situation where an administrator will say that, okay, online naman, you can afford 60 students in your class. I think that should be avoided. In fact, we should lower it as much as we can. Next slide. Now, all right. Monthly load internet allowance, borrowing mechanism for laptops, loan for the purchase of PC laptops. All right. Here, there are schools in the private sector that actually na ginagawa ito. But I would say that they are very, very rare species. Konti lang. So I think there is really a need to examine how they use their miscellaneous or other fees. I agree with the proposal earlier that this committee or another committee should focus on really examining, or even CHED, examining how the existing miscellaneous and other fees are being used. Also, pagdating naman sa loan for the purchase of PCs or laptops, napansin namin maganda rin ito pero may mga eskwelahan na nagbibigay ng loan pero binibigyan pa ng interests. Where in fact, ito naman ay gagamitin sa mga estudyante. So siguro dapat iwasan yung mga ganung bagay. Next slide. All right. There's also an issue of academic freedom. Who determines the number of hours for synchronic and non-synchronic teaching? I think malinaw yan. Our position is it should be the teacher because he knows what is the condition inside the classroom, whether it be actual or online. Next. Next, please. Also, performance appraisals of teachers. Okay, I think the performance appraisals should really reflect now a different condition. Is the online or condition or blended condition of teaching. Ang importante dito dapat when they are doing this dapat kasama yung mga teachers sa paggawa or ng evaluation or competency appraisals. Next. Next, please. All right. please, let's go back a little. All right. There is also an issue of property rights issues vis-a-vis teachers' prepared modules. There is a school that negotiates with teachers to create modules. Okay, that's fine. I'll give you 50,000 outside your salary, but you have to prepare modules. Next, there is also a school that collects module fee. Part of the fee is paid to teachers. I collect 600. I'll give you 100 for every student. Now, how appropriate that is, that's a question that I think we have to consider more seriously. Third, school considers module making as part of teacher's responsibility, so no additional pay. So, kawawa naman, no? Dapat makita to ng CHED. Now, ang tanong ganito, okay, if the module will be used inside the classroom of the teacher or the students in the department of the same school, maybe that's okay. But what if these modules will be used in another branch of the school? What if this module will also be sold to a third party or whatever? So I think these are the policies that we have even requested a long time ago. This has to be addressed. All right, next item, next slide. Okay, occupational health and safety. So there is an issue there of monitoring, transportation, source of funds. Ang sinasabi lang natin dito, I think this occupational health and safety, there must be CHED, DepEd, TESDA, and DOLE should come up with a policy that would define this in this COVID-19 in connection with the schools. Why? Because sometimes it has an effect on other laws or even the manual of regulations of private schools. So dapat hindi hiwa-hiwalay yung paggagawa ng polisiya. They should gather together and talk to the teachers, to the students, to the parents, and not only to the owners of schools or to the presidents or administrators of schools. So gawin nating tripartite or multipartite so that alam talaga na nakaakma yung mga polisiya at mga guidelines na gagawin. I think that's where things are rather lacking. Okay, next slide. Now, and this is what I'm saying, employees' participation in policy making. So, participation of employee representatives from the faculty and staff or unions, associations, in the case of organized establishment, in drafting policies affecting employees, including but not limited to the impact of COVID-19. Use the grievance machinery in dealing with issues and policies arising from employment relations as provided in Section 124 of CHED Manual of Regulations for Private Education. Ito ang hindi nagagamit. Kasi ang sinasabi kung minsan, pumunta na lang kayo sa DOLE. Kung may problema kayo sa retrenchment, kung may problema kayo sa wage cuts, go to DOLE. Where in fact, CHED can, as a preventive measure, can really inculcate the use of grievance machinery within the school so that the teachers, the non-academic personnel, and the administrators can really talk about some of these issues rather than for teachers to go out. You know, teachers cannot afford a lawyer. It's more difficult for them. I mean, we know this very well. The parity is not the same between teachers and academic personnel and the owners of schools. We support the creation of tertiary online educations and the distance learning office. But strongly suggest that it should be tripartite. I guess the good Senator Villanueva is knows this very well because he was a former TESDA Director General, and so he knows tripartism. Maybe we have to do this also even in the Commission on Higher Education or even in this particular office. Next slide. Okay. Now, let's go to the labor relation issues. We believe that exhaustions of all remedies and measures, including allocation of accumulated assets to sustain operation, it must be exhausted first before any actual retrenchments or reduction of wages and benefits. Okay? We believe also, I think we support of, if there is a law that will support the private schools, that will be great. But let us make sure that the support of government to them is conditional to the capacity of the schools to retain their teachers and non-academic personnel in terms of employment. They have to keep the jobs. Pwedeng pakibalik sandali dun sa next ano. Madali na po ito. Next slide. The previous slide, please.
Sorry, sir. Please wind up. We have a lot of...
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Tapos itong sa... Okay. Clarification of net losses. Kasi palaging sinasabi na may talo ang mga eskwelahan because of the pandemic. Totoo naman yon. Pero what I'm saying is this. Universities and colleges, okay, have attained curves of liquidity, profitability, and stability through years of existence. Okay? It's difficult to understand why, let's say, a century-old school can no longer pay some of their workers. Okay? In other words, hindi lang dapat tingnan yung losses, but the financial condition of the school. So, loss can be mitigated by resumption of revenue streams due to mandatory continuity of academic operations. Next. I think 2 last slides. Loss is deemed temporary and recoverable. So what is important is documentary evidence. Ito ang dapat makita. Government should not just say, okay, natatalo kami. Hey, what are the evidence? Ano yung financial statement and other things? We have a paper that we are going to submit to this committee to define more fully what are those requirements that we would want government to consider every time there's a problem of retrenchment or wage cuts or whatever. Then, consider the financial resources capacity of institutions sustained over the years. As I have said, may mga matatagal ng institusyon, pero pagdating ng crisis, biglang ang unang tinatanggal ay yung mga faculty members and academic personnel. Ang nakakaawa dito dahil sila yung mga front lines ngayon. And these schools have survived for so long. I think losses should not be viewed, parang yun lang ang basis but there should be more. But it's the financial condition itself that can be studied thoroughly. Last slide. Last slide, please. So, ito lang, ang gusto lang po naming sabihin, dapat walang iwanan, walang laglagan. We just have to, we are in the same boat. And you cannot just say, okay, faculty members let go or, non-academic personnel let go. Kailangan magtulungan. So, and another thing, I think in all the discussion for the last 3 or 4 months, we can hear a lot of voices coming from the owners of schools, but you never heard so much about teachers. I guess this is the first time. And I think, may I request the Commission on Higher Education and the other government agencies to really, every time there is a public hearing on guidelines, whatever, you should always call teachers because we have also a different perspective. Without that, I don't think parang hindi iniiwanan kami at yung ating mga non-academic personnel. So, thank you for listening. I think that's all what we would like to say. Uy.
Much, Sir Rene. Tadle will keep that in mind and remind everyone also here in this committee hearing that you can submit your position paper and we will see to it that your voices will be heard, and we do not intend to break the record breaking hearing yesterday, 10 oras o mahigit, no? And I'm sure a lot of us did not have breakfast or lunch. But we'll give the floor lang to DOF. We have not heard from DOF. Perhaps if I can just raise this question to the Department of Finance, if he's still there. Attorney Nina, you're there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Thank you. Let me just ask you one question. At present po, how many educational institutions have expressed the intent of applying to land banks yung program na academe? How many of these are higher education and technical vocational institutions? Do you have any data?
Sure, right now, sir, aside from the ones that have shown their intention not to apply. I understand that there are already applicants, but as to the numbers, we will be submitting to the committee the exact data on this, sir. Sir, if I may, on the other bills.
Yeah, sure. But before that, please.
Yes, sir.
And just to put on record, no, meron tayong 3 billion available fund na ready po para maipahiram sa ating mga educational institution. Is that correct? And with that, may I also ask if you have plans of augmenting the budget for this program?
Okay. In the beginning of July, sir, the Secretary of Finance announced through pre-SONA speech that the Land Bank will be providing loans for private non-DepEd junior senior high schools, private technical vocational and education training institutions, and private higher education institutions, a loan program wherein basically the Land Bank will be refinancing or rediscounting promissory notes issued by parents or benefactors of students of the said institutions. So as mentioned earlier, the program fund is at 3 billion po. And the availability is until June 30, 2021, of course, until the funds are depleted. Okay, so basically the interest rate.
We'll also ask kung ano yung status nung 3 billion, no, how much yung nabawas na, and if there's also additional
funding
request for funding. Thank you.
Sir, we will provide all of those to the committee na lang po. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On the other bill, sir, Your Honor, before we give our comments, we would first like to laud the committee on their efforts to look into the readiness of educational institutions and making sure that every student shall have access to education, and that no young Filipino is left behind. So ensuring this is in line with the aims of the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program of the Economic Team of uplifting everyone from poverty, with education playing a very important role in achieving this. So on SB 1538, we would defer to the comments of CHED TESTA and the educational institutions themselves now when it comes to the loan moratorium. But on the short term, sir, part of the recovery package that is supported by the DOF are a number of measures to support education. So primarily, this is the Bayanihan 2, which the Senate has already passed. And is aimed to be passed po, by the House of Representatives, hopefully this afternoon. We have a number of provisions there that assist education or support education. No? So for students, we have the provision amending RA 10931 on the universal access to quality tertiary education. We have support also for a transition of educational institutions to alternative learning system. Aside from that, to address digital connectivity, the DICT is to be given funding po, to basically improve on our internet speed and stability for purposes of e-learning. There is additional wage subsidies po of 17 billion. Basically, sir, the Senate version has this provision po na displaced workers in the our educational institutions ang covered. Pero po the DOF supports sana that this provision include all, not just siguro po pati po the ones that are yun nga po yung as mentioned earlier under floating status, not just po the displaced teachers. So we also have, of course, the funding and support to SUCs for the development of smart campuses. So all of these provisions in the Bayanihan 2, which the DOF really supports and is as actually the whole executive economic team are in Congress right now to basically fight for these provisions. So, yun po.
Director Nina, just
Yes,
one
sir.
more thing that I'd like to mention kasi with regard to the loan and the programs of the government, we have been very
Yes, sir.
specific about this. For example, if this loan tied to any condition, and that's what we have been pushing, conditions such as the HEI retaining a certain portion of its workforce. Kailangan, kung makaka-access sila ng program, subsidies from the government, they have to make sure na hindi sila magtatanggal ng kanilang mga faculty or mga teaching assistants or staff from that institution. Yun po, nakalagay pa rin yun, no, sa ating mga as part of our program, ma'am.
Yes, sir. As to, I think we could, if ever there are provisions po in the Bayanihan too that we can improve further po and put these conditions, no, that ensures na, of course, hindi lang pala students that shouldn't be left behind, the teachers as well. Yun po. So, this could be additions po, and the DOF will support those. Of course, the funds for recovery aren't unlimited, no? Are not unlimited, basically talaga. So this should be very targeted, and those that really need it should get it. And one of the industries po talaga that are struggling right now is the education industry. My daughter started schooling today, and online, purely online. And I understand that her school has to let go some of their teachers, which is very sad, and the students as well feel it. So the DOF is sure to really support, and okay po kami with putting conditions on loan programs, subsidies as well for these education.
Director Nina, and thank you for that clarification, because every time we talk about government subsidies in the Senate, this representation would always see to it that every time we give subsidies, whether to the education sector, to the small business, even MSMEs, we wanted to put that caveat that there's a condition na hindi nila dapat i-retrench o tanggalin ang sino man na nandoon sa kanilang business entity. Kaya nga tumutulong ang gobyerno to make sure na matulungan din yung ating mga manggagawa. Thank you, ma'am. I'll go with TESDA. The DG Rose, you're still there? I'm sorry.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, we wanted to find out, the DG Rose, how is TESDA helping the TechVoc schools to transition to flexible learning? I'm sure this is very challenging, no? I've been in TESDA for quite some time, and we always talk about competency-based programs, and especially the assessment. We cannot just assess in online assessment easily, no? So I wanted to find out from TESDA kung how are we going to do this, and if there's anything we can do here in the Senate to help out. The DG Rose, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before anything else po, during the pandemic, we came up with a survey of the different TVIs in all of the regions po. And then there have been questions in that particular survey like, does your institution have the capacity to continue operation, the conduct of training programs given the pandemic situation? 63% of those surveyed said yes, and 37 of those surveyed said no. So ito po yung nakakaawa kasi most, if not all of them, na nag-say ng no are these small institutions. And you know naman, Sec, na yung small institutions na to are usually those from the different provinces in Visayas and Mindanao. So ang second po na tanong is, what modalities of training will your institution adopt? So ang sinabi po nila is that yung blended learning ang gusto nila 78%, which means na ang sinasabi po nila na blended learning is that online plus face-to-face. So yung iba po, distance learning also, which means to say the use of radio and TV na mga programs, so they could also make use of this as a medium of instruction. 15% only said that they can do pure online. So we all know that learning management system is somehow very expensive. So what we did po is for us to open the TOP as their central platform, or the TESDA online program as their central platform po for learning as a learning management system. And then may mga sinabi pa po kami na mga tinanong pa po kami na ano pa po ang kailangan nyo, and they said that they need their trainers to be trained. So we trained already 3,000 learning facilitators to do blended or the flexible learning. In fact, in ayoko pong talawagin na online lang talaga, it's flexible learning system. So we have already came up with 3,000 of these learning facilitators. And then we will train them also po because mahal nga po ang learning management system. So in third week of August, we have lined up a program on the development of learning materials to be used in the flexible delivery po. So that would be online, distance learning. So we'll come up again with the cadre of people or the regional lead trainers na tinatawag natin sa TESDA, and we will train them for us to re-echo as a multiplier effect po sa mga regions. Ang kailangan po namin sa Senate is tulong talaga in order for us, number one, is to create mga campuses din. Kasi minsan, hindi po na-mention ang TESDA. When we talk about education agencies, minsan ang parati pong minimension is DepEd only and CHED. Parati po kaming nasa gitna. So, parating hindi minsan alam ng tao. Akala ata nila ang TESDA is only a training center. So, we would like to say that TESDA is also a part of the education system. And kumbaga sa kumbaga sa Trinity, sinasabi na sa ngalan ng Ama, sa Diyos at Espiritu Santo, yung TESDA daw po, Espiritu Santo. So, that's basically what we need.
Ibig sabihin, mahirap intindihin din.
Hindi, nararamdaman mo kahit hindi mo nakikita. So yun yung mga ginagawa natin sa TESDA SEC, and yung ayuda nga in terms of yung pag-create ng mga campuses that can really be friendly dun sa sa mga flexible delivery system. And then yung can we just also ask you to come up with something in which we could really use TV as well as radio frequencies for us to really popularize or propagate yung mga distance learning modes. Yun lang po, Sen. Salamat po.
Thank you, DG Rose. But I would like to put on record, and I think records will bear me out every time we talk about the education sector in any forum, especially in the Senate. This representation would always point out the importance of technical education and skills development sector. In fact, every time we talk about the budget, and I have to say this, the DG Rose, when the executive and the Department of Budget and Management asked for the stopping of or halting the implementation of Tulong Trabaho Act, I was the last person to know about it. In fact, I just heard someone from TESDA being interviewed na give up na nila yung additional funding that I work hard for. Imagine, we passed this measure, Tulong Trabaho Act, hindi pinondohan ng pamahalaan, tayo yung naghanap ng pondo, pagkatapos tinanggal ng hindi ko alam. Now we have Bayanihan 2, not only I work hard for the additional 3 billion pesos for our SUCs, I also work hard for additional 1 billion pesos for TESDA in Bayan Records will support this representation statement. I just hope that we'll be able to use it properly, the DG Rose. Now,
Yes, sir.
another thing that I'd like to mention is the challenge that we have right now in relation to assessment, in conducting assessment, the DG Rose. Paano po ba ito? What are we going to do? And siguro yung last point that I'd like to raise is at the end of the day, magkakaroon ba ng adjustment to our target with regard to TESDA's target graduates this year?
Yes, and we couldn't thank you enough for all the help. Even if you're not with us anymore, you're still the TESDA man. Maraming salamat po doon. In terms po of the target, we came up with yung mid-year assessment last National Directorate, which was last March. So yung iba po na we came up with a catch-up plan as well as lowering of targets na talagang hindi na po kaya because of the absorptive capacity of TESDA institutions as well as TBIs. In the assessment naman po, it is really, this particular thing is really very challenging for TESDA primarily because lalo na ngayon sa NCR, which is also bringing the highest number of accomplishment in terms po of assessment, hindi talaga pwede mag face-to-face. Alam nyo naman po yung nangyayari talaga sa assessment na challenge, the whole TVET sector is really challenged on this one Kasi yung TVET, buti na lang po, competency-based tayo. So it's easier for us to really transform yung methodology natin to another to another mode. Except that yung talagang assessment, yun po ang mahirap. However, we came up already with strategies. Number one is that all those that have been awarded APAC at saka STAR Awards, pwede na po namin i-recognize na yung mismong school can do already institutional assessment and we could recognize it already as an assessment for national recognition or national certification. That's one po. Number two is that we are now trying to touch base with the industry partners for us to be able to come up with industry certifications. And then the third is, of course, portfolio assessment for selected programs po, which means to say that if they have the recognition of prior learning, if they can provide us with documentation and na may mag-portfolio na meron sila, so we can recognize prior assessment to portfolio assessment, plus some videotapes of what they have done. So yun po, Sec, yung ginagawa namin, but surely, alam na alam mo yan, it's really very challenging.
Okay, I fully agree dun sa institutional assessment, no? Yung may APAC, yung may STAR, okay po yun, DG, but with students, for example, if you're a barista, you wanted to be assessed, syempre hindi pwedeng hindi face-to-face. Kasi if you're online, you wouldn't know if someone is whispering or asking you what to do. No? Medyo mahirap and challenging itong assessment na kailangan gawin sa ating mga estudyante. I mean, how can you certify a student if you cannot conduct yung pinaka bread and butter ng TESDA, which is the assessment?
Yes, Sec. That's why we're trying to really intensify the portfolio assessment. So bali videotapes na lang yung hihingin namin if they can really exhibit the competencies which is required. Talagang at this point full trust na lang talaga po na we will really come up with a more intensified and aggressive, robust system in portfolio assessment.
Ako dun, DG, dun sa full trust, of course, we give the benefit of the doubt, no? But it's very hard kung merong siyang kasama and it might affect the integrity of our national certificates. I think we have to look into that. No, I trust that TESDA will do its part to make sure na hindi magkaroon ng blemish yung o hindi ma-taint yung ating integrity
Yes, sir.
in the issuance of our national certificate program.
Yes, and surely we will do that because it's an ISO certified. Alam mo naman, enrolled siya sa ISO, so we cannot just try to do something na hindi po papasa sa standards ng ISO.
Yes, thank you, DG Rose. There anything you'd like to add? Kanina may nagtaas ng kamay and now I'm having a hard time looking at my computer. Naglalag pa rin siya. Is there anyone who wanted to say something before we close? Okay na?
Senator?
Yes, President Arcega, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. As we come to the end, we thank the committee for giving us the opportunity to understand the issue of online learning coming from different perspectives. If there's something that we've learned, I guess, in this exercise, Mr. Senators, of course, to understand also the interests of the other sector. Earlier, when I was listening to the faculty representative to the session, I know where you're coming. No? In fact, most of your proposal, of course, would serve the best interest of the faculty. But on the other hand, no, I would like to understand, like, for example, the class size, no, that through research been proposing that from 19 it be about 13 or 19 no, will have implication to the financial position of the private management. No? Also, in the same manner, we've been asking that we give support to we assist the faculty members in their laptops, and loads. Again, it would depend upon the financial position of the private institutions, no. And also on synchronous and asynchronous, I'm okay that we consult the teachers, no. But I guess it should be a shared responsibility between the management and the faculty, no. How many hours should be spent for synchronous and asynchronous, and of course for property rights, no. I'm happy, I've learned a lot from your presentation. This is my first time to see a faculty rep, no. To air out the sentiments, and I'm coming also as a teacher and also as a management, as also an association president, no. You're asking about what should be the property, who should own the module being used, no, within the campus, no. Naisip ko tuloy yung isang teacher sa public school na gumawa siya ng module pero pinamimigay niya dun sa mga estudyante, no. I guess pwede rin nating tingnan na ngayon habang pinag-uusapan natin sino ang may magmamay-ari at ano ang dapat makuha natin, maganda sigurong makita natin din sa kabuuan ang pwede nating ibigay, no, sa ating mga kabataan, no, less of commercialization ba or less of any professional fee, no? And of course, maganda ho, kaya lang yun nga, bilang pagtatapos, there's one thing clear, no? The problem is not just among the sectors, no? There is this COVID-19 that came into our lives unexpected. And as much as we want to ask the government, no, to give full support, as mentioned by TESDA, of our visitor from DOF, no, our resources is not unlimited, no. So at some point, there is no other way to survive this pandemic but to be kind and to be, to be more understanding of the interests, which may be a unifying element or a differentiating factor between and among. Mahirap talagang magtanggal ng teachers, no? Mahirap magtanggal ng empleyado. Pero kung talagang wala ka ng option, the next for you to ask would be the government. but the government at some point also have its own limitation to provide. So every time that we'll have the MGCQ, kinakabahan ng lahat, hindi lang yung mga empleyado, pati yung mga may-ari ng iba't ibang kumpanya. So from the ALCO and ALCO-COA, our position, of course, would be to have this bill enacted, no, which will serve the interest of everyone affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. Let's continue to be agile and resilient, but more than anything else, let's continue to be understanding and considerate, no, to the interests of other sectors while we're advancing the interests of our own sector. A pleasant afternoon, Senator, and again, thank you so much. May God bless you all in the committee and the entire Philippine Senate. Good afternoon.
Thank you, thank you. We don't have enough time, but again, let me remind everyone that you are free to submit. Sir Arcega, can you mute your computer, please? Nag-echo. Okay. Thank you, thank you. We have to end our committee hearing, but let me again remind everyone that you are free to submit your position paper. Anything you'd like to comment, we will definitely look into it before we give our committee report and defend this committee report on the floor. Let me just take this opportunity once again to thank our distinguished colleagues who are very active today. Senator Nancy Binay, who is also the chair of the Committee on Science and Technology. Our Vice Chairperson, Senator Win Gatchalian, Senator Marcos, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Francis Tolentino, Senator Lito Lapid, Senator Bongo, and our dear Majority Floor Leader, Senator Mig Subiri. At this point, I know that our education and training system is already under stress, but given the nature of the pandemic, I believe that all hands should be on deck. I think we need more consortium, more bayanihan, if I may say, more sharing of resources and information, more MBPS, more subsidies. Our experience in the Senate as we transition to online hearings has shown that the shift is difficult and presents a lot of challenges. Paano pa kaya ang hirap ng ating mga students and faculty members? The bottom line here is that we all need to be more creative and be more concerned with the plight of the more vulnerable and high-risk stakeholders, our students, teachers, and most especially small private colleges and TVIs that are tuition dependent. That's why the presence of Cotesco with Sir Rene here in this consultation is very crucial because teachers are the most important factor for the success of any learning modality. Po, number one ang ng mga teachers natin. Kahit problematic ang internet connectivity, basta magaling talaga yung teachers natin, may maayos na training, may adequate support, may raraos pa rin po natin ito. Kaso karamihan po sa kanila nasa floating status at nakakaranas po ngayon ng wage reduction. Kung ganyan po, babagsak din po ang motivation nila, kagaya ng ating narinig. So tama po, hindi natin kailangan mamili sa pagitan ng buhay at edukasyon. Learning must continue but with careful consideration of the new realities brought about by this pandemic. I think we have covered a lot of issues today regarding the implementation of the ODL, the status of DICT's support to SUCs, to TVIs, the readiness of our HEIs to implement flexible learning and the financial challenges posed by the pandemic to private HEIs. Before we end, let me allow me to highlight significant points that can help us in crafting legislation and help prepare higher education institutions and the tech voc sector as we approach the opening of the academic year. First, we really need to strengthen the Open Distance Learning Act. To date, there are only 22 higher education institutions implementing open distance learning. And the number of students enrolled in open distance learning is only 0.34% in 10 SUCs surveyed for academic year 2019-20 by PASOK. As mentioned in this representation's opening remarks, very few po HEIs offer distance education programs after more than 5 years since the enactment of this law. Second, according to CHED, a total of 525,000 students are enrolled in small private institutions that are likely facing difficulty in implementing flexible learning. There are more or less 1,900 colleges and universities in the country. And while there are big universities like UP, DLSU, UST, and Mapua that have the capacity to offer distance learning courses and flexible learning, there are more small and medium private colleges that don't have this capacity. In this regard, we really need this big universities to enter into consortium or collaborate with small colleges, most which are on the verge of closing down operations due to losses. Third, as you already aware, as you are all aware, we put in the Bayanihan 2 with the help of our colleagues, additional 3 billion pesos for the development of smart campuses. However, we really need to find a way to help small and medium colleges for their connectivity, because the DICT can only provide support to SUCs, at kailangan po ma-improve natin ito. Fourth, the government should provide subsidies and loan programs and not only learning vouchers to private HEIs to ensure learning continuity, most especially to the 525,000 students enrolled in small colleges. We note po yung estimate ng PASOK, binanggit ni President Enriquez, while 99% of faculty members have access to internet at home, only 31% of students have access. Fifth, placing a moratorium on student loans will be incredibly helpful for students who are financially affected during these trying times. However, we need to ensure transparency in terms of providing students with how rebates are computed. In connection to this, HEI should also justify or explain how miscellaneous fees will be used for flexible learning. The wellness and the mental health of our students should also be prioritized, and we have heard Senator Pia and CHED Chair and our student representative about this particular issue. And last but not the least, yung pong TWG, yung Technical Working Group in the Philippine Qualifications Framework, yung NCC, yung council po, should be formed to not just to be formed, but to be effective and start working and to ensure the alignment and concurrence in the Philippines educational framework, whether traditional, face-to-face, or flexible and distance modalities. Muli po, I'd like to end on a more positive note, and this is my personal belief when it comes to digital skills or technological proficiency. Malaki po ang advantage nating mga Pilipino dyan. You know, I think everyone knows that I serve as TESDA Director General for more than 5 years. And in those years, I was convinced that training is the key to help our people get back on their feet. Let's continue to learn on what can be done, because we can't stop our movement now and we can't avoid new ways of learning, but certainly we can only approach these challenges in the best possible way. And the choice is ours. Muli, sa ating mga guests, resource persons, Maraming salamat po, especially sa inyong pangunawa at inyong pasensya sa atin pong lahat na nakikinig at sumubaybay sa buong pagtitipon na ito. Maraming salamat po. We are now adjourning the committee, this joint hearing of the Committee on Higher and Technical Education and the Committee on Science and Technology. Muli, maraming salamat po and may God bless us all. Maraming salamat po. This hearing is hereby adjourned. Thank you. Salamat po. Maraming salamat, Sir Rene. Maraming salamat. DG Rose, thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you.
Salamat, Senator.
Salamat po,
President
Senator.
Ronquillo, thank you.